Let's get going. Come on. You need a pen? Mine's kind of one of those marker type of things. Okay, it is 7:03 p.m. on Wednesday, January 31st, 2024, the last day of January. We'd like to go ahead and welcome them out to the Highland City work session tonight. We're hoping to get a lot of work done. So as we come together, we have 3 discussion items we'll be discussing, and then we also have a closed session that we will be before we adjourn. So at this time, our first discussion item will be, once again, as a discussion item, there'll be nothing that will be voted on tonight. This is just discussing, giving direction to staff, and it will be, if there is something that needs to be voted on, will come up at a later date on a council meeting agenda. So our first item we'd like to discuss is the Mountain Ridge Park. As you're all aware, we started our first phase and got that completed. I've been getting a lot of really good comments back on it. Hopefully everyone else has been receiving some good comments. It was crowded today. I went past there and it was busy at the park. So I heard that someone actually came and said Sunday there was almost not a parking space there at all. So, so we're having a pretty busy park. That is awesome. Here it is, January, and it's crowded. So with that, as we get ready to start talking about Mountain Ridge Park, it appears this will be a very heavily used park. I'll be busy with a lot of our residents and neighboring community with coming in to visit. So with that, I think we're going to turn some time over to Aaron to walk through the Mountain Ridge Park. Now, we have the name Mountain Ridge Park as kind of a placeholder. That does not mean that's the name. We've never really officially chosen a name for this park.
It's a great placeholder because of its location, Mayor, and for years that's what it's been called. But you're right, that has not technically yet been decided as the official name. So
if you look on Google Maps, it actually says Adams All-Ability Park.
Does it? I'd heard that people were calling that now.
From the family who donated.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. I wonder if he put that in.
Somebody put it in.
Hey, if you donate that money, I'd go put it in.
Yeah.
So
Anybody can put it in.
there'll be 3 parts to our Mountain Ridge, our park discussion tonight. First, I'm going to let Brooklyn talk to you about a park naming idea she's come up with to help us generate some donations and come up with a community way to name the park. And then next, Andy and I will talk about kind of phase 2. We'll look at the map together and then talk about the potential amenities for phase 2 that we hope to finish this calendar year. So Brooklyn, I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, just give me a second. I gotta pull my little thing over. Okay. Oh boy. Okay, so like Aaron said, this. Oh, how do I get it? Let me see it. Well, it's so small. I can't see it. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Okay. So this is just my idea for ways to raise money for the park, but also a fun way to name the park. And the platform I'm interested in using to do this is called Give Lively, and I've been talking with Scott because we would also do it with the foundation that him and Ed have founded. So let me see if this is gonna work here. Why isn't it? There we go. Okay. So intro. I think this would be a good idea because it gives the community the opportunity to name the park together with also some friendly competition.
Can you just make sure you're speaking really good into the mic? So
Yeah, sorry. I'm
just worried about those online.
Oh, sure, for the people watching. Yeah, okay. And I'll explain, as I'm going through, I'll explain everything and I have examples. It'll make sense as I'm presenting, so just be patient. But if you have questions, feel free to ask them. But generally, my idea is to have the community name the park, and this is just a new idea. It's not replacing any new ones. It's not replacing anything we already have, any donation ideas we already have out there. And if you don't like this one, this platform, Give Lively, does a lot of things, so I'll just keep coming up with new things. And then, thanks for listening, and just please ask questions. So what is Give Lively? It's a free fundraising platform that was built specifically for nonprofits. And it is free, and I'll explain why it's free, but some of the services they have are campaign pages, donation widgets, text to donate, event ticketing, peer-to-peer. As you can see, all these. The ones that I'm going to use are team fundraising, leaderboard, and live display. And it's free because basically a bunch of tech people got together and they decided that they wanted to bootstrap this idea and make it, you know, free for all nonprofits to use. And it saved $90 million in tech expenses for nonprofits when they do use it. So it's pretty cool that they've done that. So some of the donation methods that we need to be aware of is that, so they don't charge any fees, any startup fees, but we would need to consider some of the processing fees for the additional payment methods that we can make available to our donors, which would be like credit cards, Apple Pay, Google Pay, stuff like that. So like right now we're using Venmo, PayPal, and checks, but I do think it would be helpful if we had these other methods for people to use, so they have, you know, more options. And the donor, in these fees, the donor can choose to pay for them, but if not, Stripe, which is the credit card processing system they use, it'll collect them if they don't. And then here's just a table that I've made that shows the fees that are taken from all these different payment processors and how their prices, or how they compare to each other. So the most expensive one on here is Venmo, and that's the main one that we're using right now. So I think it's interesting, you know, to look at how, I mean, they are comparable, but some of them are a lot more cheaper. So if you guys need to go back to the slide, or, you know, or if you want to just look at this PDF, I can send it to you. Okay. So next is, like I said earlier, I'm going to need the Highland City Foundation's help with all this. The donations are distributed by Give Lively directly into the foundation's bank account within 7 to 10 business days. And Give Lively will enable the foundation to continue to manage all of its own finances while allowing city staff, probably me, to help with the fundraising efforts. So it'll stay separate, because I know we don't want, you know, them mingling too much with each other. And the Give Lively platform does provide tax-deductible receipts for the donors, Scott. I know we had talked about like how that would work. They do provide that, so that's a really nice service. Okay, so right now what we have on our website is this form here where people can, you know, go on and they can, you know, buy benches and trash cans and things like that. That'll stay there. If we use Give Lively, that's not going anywhere.
Now with this, they can't just click on it and buy it. They have to Venmo us or that saying, hey, I want to buy a bench. It's not, they can click on it and buy a bench.
But if we use Give Lively, I can embed a widget that will let them go on our website and just buy it right there, or just, you know, donate something and then get there. And then in the little, they'll put like their comment saying what it's for a bench. I mean, it'll be easier for us to figure it out depending on the price because it's listed there. But it'll just give them, you know, that easy accessibility to just buy something right there. Okay, so what is the plan? My plan is I love making things fun, things that aren't fun. If you make them fun, I feel like people are more likely to do it, like chores, for example, you know. But I think for a lot of people, they love the park and they already love it. So it's not going to be that hard to make donating to our park fun. We just have to come up with a way that engages them. I think the way we're doing it right now maybe feels a little transactional. And if you look up the psychology of donations, a lot of people won't donate if they kind of feel like they're just using them as an ATM, you know, if it's too transactional. So my idea, again, is to make it more fun and to give equal opportunity to everyone in our community to have an impact. I feel like right now and I know that we had some maybe donating efforts that were going to come out, but I feel like right now it's people with a certain financial status that are able to donate to the park, and I want everyone in the community to be able to contribute, you know, no matter where they're at in life financially. It's Highlands Park. It's the park for everyone in Highland, not just the people with a bunch of money. So I think it'd be really cool if we did something like this, because it gives, like, you know, equal opportunity to all the residents here. And then, let's see, next page. Sorry, this little scrolling thing isn't working very well. Okay, so the way I want to do this is with leaderboard and team fundraising. And essentially, this leaderboard, what you'll do, or what people will do, is there will be this leaderboard where the community will come together, and if they want, they can pay $20 to pretty much submit a name that they like to the park. And then there's going to be this leaderboard on this platform, Give Lively, where people can go and donate towards the name that they like. And whatever name ends up having the most donations at our deadline is the winner. But I know you're probably like, whoa. This sounds maybe like a little dangerous. Like people
So the
could
Brooklyn
submit.
Park, if someone goes and donates a lot of money.
Yes, 100%. But so so we're gonna have this leaderboard. So I have an example to show you, kind of what it looks like. But the reason I like it is because it's motivational, and it does give the recognition to top donors, teams, but it also encourages participation and like playful competition. Like it can unite the community to come together for something fun. Okay, so if I come over here and so let me try and bring this over. Oh boy, that's also really small. Okay. Does this actually work? If I click on that? Okay, cool. That actually works. So this is an example from Give Lively's website with a fundraiser where they used, where is it? There it is. Where they used this leaderboard service that Give Lively has, and this is the Girls and Boys Club. Oh geez, can you guys see that okay?
No, well, yeah, I can.
Okay. How about now? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, so you see right here where it says teams, that would be park names. So if I were to click on this, right now they have it as teams because they did it a little differently, but it would be park names. So let's just say number one, the one that won could be Brooklyn Park, right? And Brooklyn Park raises $23,000, and that would be amazing. And then and so this is the leaderboard. It shows what name got in first place, second place, third place, fourth place, fifth place. And my idea is that people would submit names, as many names as they want, but they have to pay $20 to submit a name, and they have to write like not necessarily an essay, but like a paragraph about why they want that name. And there's a list of guidelines they would have to follow. And if they don't, we'll delete the name because we don't want people submitting anything inappropriate. And then during a council meeting, Erin, was it the May council meeting or April? Anyway, I have it on here, but during one of the council meetings, you guys will get to narrow down the names to 5 to 10 names that you like, and you'll read the submissions and you'll pick them. So that's
okay.
what we'll
So
be.
there is a little bit of a selection at the very end where
Yes.
we're very, very open, because we could have someone come say, okay, I've donated $20,000 to get my name on the park, but yet we're saying, hold it. We were telling people it was $1 million, but yet 20,000 grabbed a $10 million park.
It'll actually be at the beginning before the community even gets to vote on the names. They get to submit the names and you finalize them to the top 5.
That was one of my fears. Is going,
Yeah.
okay, you have someone that also comes. So it sounds like you've worked through some of that.
Yes, I have. Trust me, I've thought through most things. Okay, so this would be the team names. This is what people would see when they come to and like over here where it says about our great future campaign, we would write something. It would be our stuff, right? So this would be something about why we want people to donate to the park or whatever. And then this fundraisers right here. If you click on here, you can see this guy named Gary. This is the cool thing. Let's just say I submitted the name Brooklyn Park, and I really liked it. I could start my own fundraiser and go fundraise separately for my specific park name because I love it so much, and I want to share my park name on my socials. I want to text it out. I want to email it out, and I can start getting. So if you go down here, you can see that this guy sent it out to his friends and families, and his top donors were himself. And then his friend Corey donated $3,000. His maybe sister donated $2,000. So you can, if you really like a park name that you submitted, if one of the residents does, they can go raise money for their specific name. So that's what this does. Let's see. And then the little when they submit their park name and like I was saying, they had to do the essay or the paragraph. That's where it would go right here. Under kind of like their description, like why they would want people to vote for their park name would go right there. Okay, so any questions so far?
Yeah. Is there any way we could get a QR code to be placed?
100%.
Okay.
Yes, I can get QR codes, I can embed it, I can text it. There's lots of things.
Or we could even put it as a big banner. At
Yes,
the
that's
park.
well. I'm glad you mentioned that because I have the banner option in here.
Okay, so just Brooklyn, I just want to back up because I want to make sure I understood. What you're saying is people they pay $20 to submit names with
Yes.
a little paragraph. Then it comes to council, and the council would choose 5 of those names then to go forth as a competition.
And then the 5 names go in the little donation spot, and then people can start donating to the name they like. And they can donate as much money as they want to get their name to win. Whatever name they like, they can throw as much money as they want at it. There's no cap.
I love it. The BYU actually did something like this where they were giving a trip away. My brother-in-law and about 4 or 5 other people grabbed a hold of this, and they think they marketed it for 20 days. And every day, my brother-in-law and others would put something unique about things out there, and it really pushed social media on certain things they're going. And I mean, they were getting a lot. Now, I guess on the way they vote, there's bots that also can go vote. That was the problem right towards the end. All some bots started voting and pushing things up, but we can work through that. Again, if it's a donation, if it's money that pushes it up,
Yeah.
we're okay because that money.
We want the money, so that's fine. Okay, so,
Oh, Scott has a question.
yeah.
We talked about this the other day, and I think it's a great idea. Let me just clarify so I understand. So you have this Give Lightly, basically, interface for people. Is that going to be on the Highland City Foundation website, or is it on the city website, and then you shoot the money over to the foundation?
So it's not going to be on the Highland City website because I don't want them mixing with each other. So it would be on the foundation's website. But if we wanted to feature it on the Highland City website, we would just have a link going from Highland City to your foundation. They would never be the same.
So this would all be on the Highland City
On the
Foundation's website. And I talked to Ed, and he says, I said that you told me you would be willing to come help set up that.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, oh, no, I can do it. But I'm not sure. I think we're still going to have to communicate because with the widgets and all the specifics here. Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
I mean, I'm more than happy to work with Ed in the way he wants me to work with him. Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
he
figure
was,
that
He
out.
was okay with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Brooklyn, is there any concerns where we're using our social media of the city to push this? Is that something we need to be
I don't think so, just because that's promotion. I think you can promote it with the city just fine. I don't see that being a problem. I mean, unless you guys do, but I don't.
Does any of the council see an issue with using the city social media sites to market this since it benefits the residents?
I don't. I see it being very similar to
The
physical
library.
marketing that we do in the library for the Friends of the Libraries book sale, for example.
Yeah, and I mean, I've promoted things before, like and
It's
Arts
already
Council.
on our website right now to be able to donate
Yeah.
to the park through the foundation. So, I mean, the website's an interesting question. I mean, does it even need to be on a foundation website, or could it be on ours? But we can get through those details at
Yeah.
some point.
right.
Yeah. But I think the discussion is to put it on the Highland City Foundation website, but I just want to understand the logistics on that.
For sure.
Because I think this is a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so step 1, what we need to do is just apply, and that can take up to 2 weeks. And I would just really need Scott and Ed's support on that because there's some financial information that you guys have that I don't. So that's pretty much all I need from you guys on there. And then step 2 is that landing page I showed you, the Girls and Boys Club. Kind of that's what our landing page would look like, but ours would have maybe information like what are we fundraising for and why, how the fundraiser works, the timeline of the donation process, deadlines, rules and guidelines for submitting a name, and then just general details about the foundation if we wanted to put something on there about that as well. And then step 3, okay, we've already talked about some of this, but step 3 is our donation goal, which right now is $1 million. We can change that higher or lower, but so for the $20, the community would be able to submit a park name, and I would do that on Give Lively by creating an event for people to go in and submit their money, right? Or submit their park name and make their payment right there. And then to do this, there would be that submission form that they would fill out, right? And then on that form, it would be their why paragraph, and then we would collect their payment, and on there, it would also have the naming guidelines, which I have for you guys to look at. But then some other things we need to consider are, do we want, when people are submitting names, does the city want to submit a name? Do we want to keep Mountain Ridge Park? Like, we need to think about that. And then another thing too is how do we want to decide the winner of this competition? Do we want it to be the name with the most donations or the first name to $1 million? Both of them come with pros and cons. Personally, I would rather do the name with most donations. I worry about, because I want this to be a community effort, I worry about a business or a family coming in and just donating $1 million because they want theirs to win, and then all of a sudden the competition's over. It's great, we got $1 million, but that's not fun anymore, like it's done. And I mean, if we keep it open and if we say the name with most donations, then, you know, that they can still do $1 million and we can let it keep going, and more people can do $1 million if they want. So that's just something to think about, but I would rather do the first one if it was up to me. Okay, so here's the,
Do a buy it now. If they pay $1 million, they buy it now.
yeah.
They bought that name now.
Okay, so here's my name submission guidelines. Again, I can send this to you guys if you know, if you want to take a look over it after I'm done here. But basically, it's just respectful language, no commercial names, avoid trademarks, and then local heritage or culture. If they want to persuade you guys, because you know you guys are going to vote them down, right? You're going to narrow the names down. If someone wants their name to get picked, maybe they should, you know, talk about why their name relates to Highland, you know? So we'll have that in there, or why their name should be picked over someone else's name. And then obviously clarity and pronounceability, and then 1 entry per person is allowed. No double entries. Let's see. And then step 4, oh my gosh, why is this so, okay, is the launching. So that's April 1st. So I would probably need, if we're gonna do a website, Scott, I would probably need about a month, a little over a month to make that. And then April 1st, we could open up that event for people to start submitting names, and there would be no limit. We wouldn't cap that on anything. And then May 7th is when you guys would narrow the names down, 5, 7, 10, whatever you guys think. And then on from June 1st to July 20th or 27th, and I'll explain why I have 2 dates there, that's when people will start donating. That's when they say, you know, $100 to the Brooklyn Park or whatever they decide. And then, okay, August 2nd, park name reveal during the fling. And I put mayor here because I think it would be a really, really cool event if during the fling we had the park name, you know, we're already gonna have a winning name at that point. If we had it ready to go, it was installed, it was ready, and then mayor did like a little reveal with like a curtain, pulled the curtain down, right? Have it make it like a big deal, an event at the fling, maybe have some food trucks, maybe even a pickleball tournament around it, make it like a whole thing, right? And so back to those dates, July 20th, if we want to do that, I talked to Andy and he said it would take about 2 weeks to make that type of a sign. So if we wanted to have this whole reveal, the donations would have to end around the 20th. If not, we could push it back to the 27th or even like the 30th or whatever. But I vote for a big reveal. I think that'd be super fun, Mayor. If that's something you'd want to do.
I think it'd be really fun. You know, I think the question we're going to have is where's the fling? I'm not sure the fling will fit at the new park, but you know, we could do it even on our stage there, where we have it, and we have a great big thing we reveal and have all the council and myself. I think it'd be a really fun, because if we've engaged the community and they are real bought in. Listen, this park is getting some traction.
Yeah.
I think we can get them bought in.
Well, and I'm always trying to come up with new ways to bring more people to the fling as well. So if we can incorporate the two, I think it'd be a hit, honestly. And I have show video on here. I don't have the video on my slideshow, but I have a video of a mayor, or I think it's mayor of a different town, who did like a reveal where they pulled the curtain down and everyone's clapping. If you wanted to see it, I thought it was fun. But it is doable. And I think the reason I have it on there to show you is because that's kind of high up. So it's like, how would we make it work? But people do it. It's fun. Okay, so then step 5 is the promotion. So obviously social media. We've got lots of social media avenues, and a banner. I was thinking we'd put up a couple banners. We'd have to put up one banner to promote the actual naming event, to like say, hey, if you want to submit a name, you know, scan this QR code, and you can submit your name right here and there at the park. Pay $20, whatever, because Stripe will already be in there. They can just literally do it on their Apple Pay or whatever they have on their phone. And then the second banner will be when people need to start submitting donations to the park. So we'll have 2 different banners, and I'm assuming these banners will go up at the park. I think that's obviously the best place for them. And then the newsletter, I could put it in there. We can I can embed it on Highland City's website, wherever. And then the team sharing I was telling you about, where if you really like a specific name, you can go promote your specific name that you like. And then the hype event, like the fling event that I was telling you about. And then I think that is all. Hold on. Yep, that's it. And then, oh, sorry, that's my daughter's. Okay. Yeah. Questions?
Scott has a question.
Brooklyn, I'm going to meet with Dennis tomorrow evening.
Okay.
I think you've already sent me some information on this, but could you send me a copy of your slide presentation?
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll go through it with Ed so we get a little better idea. Because when I talked to him about this on Monday night, he says, "Oh, I can put this together," but I don't think he understands all the specifics.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and then maybe we can set up some time to meet if that would be okay.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
let me talk to him first, show him these slides, kind of talk this up, because I think this is a very good idea, and I'd like to, see some good fundraising.
Yeah, me too.
So Scott, with the fundraiser, we send out in our newsletter a little flyer here at the 1st of January. I had 3 individuals reach out that wanted to donate. Do we know that any of that money ever come through?
I talked to Ed, who's the secretary treasurer, as of Monday night, and he looked at all the accounts in that. There was a total of $19,000, about $500. But there's one coming from Desert Trust for another $3,000, and another donation for $2,000 that's been kind of promised should be here in a week. But the big donors you're talking about, which is interesting, I won't mention names, but one of the big donors talked to me in the gym a couple days ago and said it was the most wonderful park ever. He was there on Sunday. It's such a nice addition to the city, so who knows?
I'll grab that donor.
Yeah,
We
you know
we
which
both
one I'm
know what
talking
we're talking about. We'll tighten that one up.
Okay. So I think there's some things pending out there, but this is a great way. Yeah.
But I would love, I think if people had it, especially benches or trees where they could click and buy. I think that's,
Yeah.
because a lot of times when they've gotten a hold of me, I say, okay, you've got to send, and I'll email them where they send the check to the foundation. I always say, hey, you can go to the foundation if you want to have this, or you can make it direct to the city this other way. But it's hard to get it out where if they could, hey, click here and they're done. I think just the simplicity.
Yeah.
And I understand the larger donors, they're going to want to do a check. They're going to want to make sure how that transaction, maybe have an agreement with the city and some things that way, what we've done in the past.
Yeah, I think having the convenience of just being able to do it right when you're looking at it and it's fresh in your mind, we'll get a lot more, maybe even smaller donations, but a donation's a donation, Anyway, if you guys don't have any more questions, I'm done. So,
I do. On the then selecting it, the $1 million versus the highest amount. Are we comfortable with a $25,000 being the highest? Naming it based on that.
Well, it would be the 5 names. Let's assume we've chosen 5 names.
Right.
So it's
And I realize
out of
that.
those-
It's just, in the no commercial names, I think of the Delta Center and how much money they probably put in to get that center. If we were to get $1 million donation.
Well, and that's why I call it the buy it now. I think if someone you
Yeah.
put down, if they had to buy it now,
I think we
they-
need to keep that option in, is all I'm saying. And if say, for example, Macy's wanted to give us $1
Well,
million for that park
yeah.
and name it Macy's Park,
Or
would we
Clyde.
really be against that?
Yeah.
Or what?
Well, Clyde, like the Clyde, group.
Yeah,
they
the Clyde construction, Patterson. I don't know that the requirement of not having it. It depends on the trade-off,
yeah.
right? So if it's $1 million, are we really going to pass up $1 million based on the fact we don't want, Patterson's name on a park? So that's just a question. I think I know my answer, but I would be interested in a discussion on that.
Did you just offer Rob was going to donate $1 million to the park?
I'm sorry, what?
Rob
Well, he
Patterson's
just
going
said
to
he
donate.
didn't want Patterson's name on the park, so I'm done.
Yeah. He's got his vote.
Well, Brooklyn's going already starting to race for the
Yeah.
$1 million.
Yeah.
Can't you do an or thing, Brooklyn, like you see on eBay, where it's like $1 million or highest bid?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can. I don't know the yes or no to that because I haven't been able to get into Give
Well, you can
Lively,
have the
but-
bid, then you can have buy it now. I mean, I understand. There's some things.
Yeah.
You can always say if you're donating $1 million, they can contact us. We could end the naming competition. I think most people, if they donate $1 million, would understand that even for the.
Yeah.
So.
I think we would have gotten the $1 million already if somebody was
yeah.
going to do that.
Well, and my whole reason for wanting to do this was so that the everyday residents who come to the park can feel like they're contributing to it, can feel like it's their park too, like they helped name the park. And I really worry about focusing so much on a value, like a dollar value on it, just because that, I mean, I don't know. To me, as like a person who loves parks, it's a little bit disheartening when you go to a park and you see a name of Adobe or something like that on there, and you know that those people are never coming to this park, they're never going to enjoy it with their families, and that just kind of, I don't know, that just kind of ruins the vibe a little.
Good input.
Yeah, I think we need to decide up front which route we want to go.
Well, we've been after the $1 million.
If we're really pushing the, okay, whichever wins in this thing, and then somebody, swoops in, and everybody who has contributed kind of feels like they just got chipped.
But are we still doing something for people who contribute? They get, if they contribute a certain amount, they get their names on the rocks.
Yeah.
Or, even if they contribute $20.
And I know that kind of leads into, so let's live on the lively, because I have that same question that Kim's, I think we got to, as a council, we've got to be very consistent. If your name's on the stone, this is what you have to donate, because we can't have someone saying 2,500, another saying 5, or one saying 10. We got to be consistent on that. So the question is on this Give Lively. Does everyone like this kind of for the naming? I think, Ron, you brought up a question. Hey, if someone came and I think we have till April 1st to find our $1 million donor for the name. But after we probably start this, what you're saying, there is some bad faith if we are trying to do a naming and then also rip it out.
Well, that's why
I understand that. The other thing on Give Lively, what are they getting? This is free.
It's completely free.
It's completely. Was it?
They're not out here to raise money. They don't.
Grant that was given, and this is provided as a service, or
yes.
It just seems like it's too good to be true, and I usually am careful about those. I did a Word program that was free. Oh, you want to save the document? You have to pay Microsoft.
I mean, I've been in their website. I've been looking. It's free. Like you can go on the website, Ron, and look around.
I trust your staff work. I'm not.
Yeah.
Well, if you go look at Venmo's not free. They might be getting the commission where they might make their money. Maybe they're getting.
And that's
the commission.
what I'm wondering. There's got to be something.
I mean, when you say $4.99 for Venmo, there's
it is.
You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Ron, if you go on the website, Give Lively, just go on there, and they have a little section called "Why We're Free," and they have like testimonies as to why they feel this should be a service available too.
I'll do that research.
Yeah, it's definitely worth looking into, because it's a cool, like you said, it's almost like, is it too good to be true? No, there's just a bunch of good people out there who actually want to make a positive difference, and someone actually did it.
Wonderful.
Can you scroll back up to the timeline, Brooklyn?
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So I like, I think Mayor, you're the one who said it, is you get till April 1st. Well, let's see. No, April 1st is the day they have to submit names, right? Don't we launch March? Or wasn't that the idea?
No, we do that. We start the marketing April 1st to the names.
Okay, to get the names. Okay. So we could give mayor, council time until April 1st to reach out and, okay, is there a $1 million donor out there? And then if the answer is no, then we move forward with this as the park naming idea. Do you want to have the weekend to think about it and tell us next week? We're going to be back here on Tuesday.
I think I'm still good with the $1 million button thing. I think we know by then, but I want people to know that even if they're donating money and their name doesn't get chosen or something like that, they're still going to get something back in return. Like, so on the website, say, hey, you know what? $2,000, just to let you know, this is what you get in return. Even if your name isn't chosen, you still get your name engraved on the stone for this amount of money. Or, you donate $50, you're going to get a certificate saying, hey, I was part of fundraising for Camarodella Park. You know what I'm saying? Brittany Bills Park, sorry. What do we call
we're going to
it?
start getting competition on you.
No, we had something.
We need more competition.
Well, we've got 5 council members. Our last names sound good.
Brooklyn.
Yeah.
I think this is just fantastic, and I appreciate all the work you put into it and the enthusiasm, and I think it's going to make a huge difference, and so thank you.
Oh, well, thanks,
Brittany.
Brittany.
If we do this right, it also can, like you said, build the unity, gets the fun the park, and hopefully kids might want to join in. Hey, Mom, can I donate $1? But I think what Kim's saying, if you have a 20, you want some to donate 2,500, and they need to say, oh, I
Yeah.
can donate. And I guess the question, if they donate towards the naming, are we going to also let them buy a bench with that same money? Does that make sense? That's
Like if they end up matching the price of a bench, that they should also get the bench. 100%. I think that's a great idea.
I'm just saying it gets your bench, but it can go towards the name. They can also say, okay, you put it here, but you also get to slip that 2,500 into one of the name categories. I don't know, might
Yeah.
get more.
I don't see why not. I think there's a lot of opportunities here.
So, council, here's a question. We have, I think the items where you go buy it, we know, hey, where your name. We got to be very specific. If it's on the bench or a tree, it's gonna be off the side. What's the dollar amount to get the name on the stone?
Well, how much does it cost to engrave a name on a stone?
Andy, do you remember? And we have to be careful, and you have so much space too.
Yeah, we don't know. It's going to cost a few $100. I would think a couple $100 each time they come out, at least. But we still don't know exactly how much it's going to cost for the engraving on the stones. The stones themselves were quite expensive. The actual stones and the polishing the faces, et cetera. We don't know an exact price yet for the engraving.
Maybe we should have an idea of how many names we can fit on there, like how big they would need to be and how many we can fit on there, and that would help us know what to put donations at for your
How much
name.
it costs?
Yeah, I think to have them readable, even though they're fairly large stones, you probably have I don't know, maybe, because nobody wants their name to be like right at the bottom, right? You don't want to be the person that's right next to the sidewalk. So that readable pane of names is probably like 10 per side or something like that, to where it's kind of in your eyesight window and it's big enough that you can read. So you probably have capacity for about 20 names on there that are in the prime area where you would want your name to be as you walk through, kind of in your view angle.
So I guess the other question is, the council, does a larger donor get the name bigger or a different placement on the stone versus a smaller donor? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's, we've had some donations, out there. So that will be a question.
I think it's really appropriate to have different categories of classes of donors on the stone potentially, and that would hit what you're talking about. That the platinum donors are $200,000. The gold, the silver donors are less than that.
We've been reluctant to say a number just because that problem, right? It's hard to answer that question because we only have so much space until we know how many donors come in. So what we have said is $2,000, get your name in the park, right? So because that was to buy a bench. And so we've said $2,000, get your name in the park. Brooklyn, she comes up with great ideas, right? So she's trying to come up with a good idea for us of what about those less than $2,000? Like, can we do something, put their names in bricks or something? She told us the bricks was boring. So she's working on something more fun than bricks. But because we want to honor those donations as well, right? As much as we can, that makes sense to use, to not spend all of the donation on the name, right? The name.
Well, no, and that's, you have to, just that stone, and that's, I think it was, what was it, $80,000 to have those two stones for the donors they even placed there. Now, I understand it's also an entry monument, so it's an entrance area, but those stones were expensive. We were anticipating, hey, here's your entrance stones, but if you're putting your name there, there was some money spent to have that be nice, hopefully for the donors, so.
So we could have, the higher end donors' names engraved on the stone, and then we were thinking of something for not lower end, but
less than. Yeah, so if you go there, actually, there are names already on some playground pieces of equipment, some benches, some picnic tables, and then the Veterans Pavilion. We already have names on there for those. We might be moving the benches names around. We're kind of still working on that one, but yes, there are already some there, actually.
I think I've seen bricks before. I've seen like fence posts with names on them. I'm just trying to think of other parks that I've seen. I don't know. Thunder Junction had handprints with names on them.
Yeah.
I kind of like the bricks because I want to go find my name on a brick somewhere in the park. I don't know.
See, not boring. Councilmember Smith.
It's like a hide and go seek kind of, like a, a scavenger hunt. Find grandma's brick. I don't know. I'll have to think about it.
I just had one more question. Just as I talk with the foundation. So the foundation is composed with a small group of volunteers. They don't get paid anything. And so if we're running this through the website, obviously the foundation, if people reach a certain donation limit, they get a tax receipt, okay? And I think the foundation's happy to take care of that. So is it an assumption on my part if we just keep a list of people who donate and then turn that to the city so you can decide about if you want to do the bricks or the stones or that, so the foundation wouldn't be doing that. Is that correct? Okay, thanks.
On the bricks and stones, they'll cost about $60 themselves. Just the little brick or stone.
A brick with a name on it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. Any other things on the, I guess the naming I think sounds good. Let's move forward with that to kind of plan towards April 1st. Is the council okay to kind of, with that kind of, I think, like you said, Brooklyn, I do think we got to try to engage more than just saying, hey, we've got this $50,000 or $100,000 donor. We need to try to engage that $20 donor.
Mm-hmm.
They'll make up, and they also, if they have ownership in the park, when they're there at the park, they take a little bit of pride. So,
I just have one more comment. Wow.
Oh, is that a compliment? Okay. Thank you, Ron. Okay. Thank you. Well, I'm really passionate about it. I think it could be potentially one of the coolest things for Highland. So, yeah.
I've
So
been
thank you.
on many nonprofit boards, many, and we've done this. I mean, and this is one of the best organized efforts that I've seen.
Hmm.
I mean, it really is well done. Appreciate your hard work.
Well, thank you very much.
okay, I still think we have other discussion on the park.
We do. Andy, do you want to hit the computer? And so now we're going to talk about phase 2.
Now, I know we're
and-
getting ready. Let me ask you. I know we have our traffic engineer here. I don't know if we need to go there and come back, or
We strategically thought it'd be good to do the fun stuff first and then get down to other things.
okay. So we're saying the referendum.
Not
and the traffic
that
study,
your
Ryan,
stuff
is
isn't
not
fun, Ryan. Just who wants to talk about traffic and road widenings?
There are lots of people that are getting called boring tonight, Ryan. But we love them all. Okay, council, just really quickly a reminder of kind of what our master plan is for the park, or what the discussions have been to date. Much of this, as you know, we've already constructed, but some of the elements that we haven't yet constructed that we'll talk about here as we look to fund, we haven't yet constructed the baseball field. We haven't constructed any of the soccer field areas. We have not yet constructed the maintenance building that's kind of planned over on the far west. And I'm trying to get my pointer to go over to that side, but clearly I'm not very good at running this. How do I get the pointer over there? Oh, well, I'll just talk. And then we haven't constructed, there's been a lot of discussion about potentially having a ninja obstacle course over on the west side. That has not yet been constructed. And then our outer ring trail and all of the plantings that are adjacent to the residents that are on the west and the south has not yet been constructed. So as we look and we talk through some of these improvements and the costs, just wanted to give you a little bit of a visual to kind of remember the master plan, because we'll next go to some of the costs and the analysis that we've done there. So.
Okay, so, and will you blow that up a little bit for us, Andy? I just wanted to talk through this, rather than making a PowerPoint, Mayor and Council, we did a simple document for you tonight. So here's the latest and greatest on the finances, and then we're gonna talk about amenities. So Council's previously approved about $9 million for park spending. If you remember our last December meeting, Council said, okay, you can use up to $1.3 million of parks impact fee revenue. And then as Councilmember Smith was talking about earlier, there's about $25,000 sitting in the foundation, yet to come to the city, which brings us to $10.3 million, almost $10.4 million. So phase one, while we're not 100% done there, we're pretty dang close. And so the total cost on that is a little over $8 million, which leaves us, with all of those sources, $2.2 million roughly. Mayor asked me this earlier today, so I wanted to give you all an update. I thought it might be relevant for you. We've gotten, since we last talked about that $1.3 million, we now have fund balance numbers for fiscal year 23 for parks, as well as some more. We've had a couple more months of impact fee money coming in. So if you remember, last time we talked, we needed 42 building permits per year if we used $1.3 million to still be able to make our bond payment. Actually, because of some changes with the numbers, we're now down to 29 per year. So there's no concern, again, still using that $1.3 million. We actually got 21 permits in the month of January. So we're well on our way at this point. It ends up being, I said in here, 115 permits.
Just since we have some new council members, maybe let us explain, I think, hopefully Doug and Ron, you're up on this. What we look at is we have a park bond that needs to retire in 3 years. We currently have enough money in the bank to retire those bonds. But what we were talking about is saying, hey, if we have this, I'm just going to use the number of $3 million is what it takes to retire that bond. We're saying we have 3 years. They will not let us pay the bond off early because we thought, let's pay it off early, but they will not accept the payment. The bond payer will not let us repay our bond. And so we have the $3 million sitting there, but each time we do a building permit, we're collecting fees for an impact. Well, we've then said, okay, if we have 3 years, this is where the 41 permits came. If we borrow the 1.3 out of that 3 million, how many permits each year do we need? Well, we needed 41. Well, that was in the fall, but we've had some a lot of building permits come in, and now it's dropped down that in order to retire our bond in the 3 years, we need 29 building permits to happen each year to be able to retire that bond. And I believe we've historically been hitting between right around about 80. Now, the last couple of years have been because of Ridgeview have been high, but it appears that we should be okay by borrowing that 1.3 out of that bond, and we'll still have enough funding and probably excess to close out that bond. We just want to make sure we don't get caught where can't get that bond done.
In the last 5 years, our average has been 156. But if you look over 21 years, our average is 132. So it's still well high enough. Even at our lowest 5 years, the average is 52 per year. So I don't have concern.
So the difference between that 42 and the 29 is the building permits that have come in the interim.
And the fact that at that point in December, I was estimating what our park impact, Parks Capital Fund balance was, and now I have the actual numbers, which you'll hear next Tuesday, actually, because we've gotten our audit complete. So it's a combination of that, and we know a little more where phase one spending ended up, really. So those two things changed that number.
Okay. And when we talk about the number of building permits that we need to come in, it is simply the park impact fee from those that we're looking at.
Correct. Yes. Yep.
So if we get 29 building permits over the next 3 years, then we should be okay. Or we have to get 87 building permits in 3 years to be able to repay back that 1.3 that we're saying we're trying to take out.
Correct. Okay, so tonight I have 2 questions for you. The first, I don't think we're prepared to answer tonight, but I kind of wanted to start giving you this information. So we have a donor who's been interested for a long time in donating towards the baseball field. We heard at 6 o'clock tonight. We've been having a hard time getting a hold of them lately and knew there was some changes potentially. So at 6 o'clock tonight, we heard that donor is willing to donate $250,000 towards the baseball field. Our latest and greatest estimate on what that cost, the total cost was, is $780,000. So I'd like to have the chance to sit down with the donor and make sure we understand exactly what he wants out of the baseball field. And then at that time, I think we want to have a conversation as a council, because for a long time, we were thinking that the whole thing was going to be donated. So I think we want to have the conversation of, now that that may not be the case, do we want to still move forward with that as that?
Is that 780? Is that for turf or just grass?
Grass.
And that's is that the bid from? Okay.
And then on the donor, They also mentioned that they might, they're in that realm with the baseball area. They said they could reach out to some others to see if they could garner in some other donations. But that, there's quite a bit of, there's $530,000 gap between, to get that baseball. But I did inquire saying, hey, for that $250,000, we need to keep the full-size high school field. And they said, well, Highland already has 2 smaller fields. We'd really like to keep a larger field in. I think the question comes in, is there areas that they could be flexible to keep the donation, but, configuration on amenities, or how could we work to see if we can kind of cut down some costs there?
Does that 780,000 include a big fence to protect those homes in the back?
I mean, it includes a normal baseball fence, but nothing taller, not like a green monster,
I don't know
or
the distance.
anything like
Is it
that.
400 feet? How far? What is the distance?
Josh.
Baseline distances on the field are 350, and center field's about 375 on the field is laid out.
So you would need an MLB player to really whack it, to be able to hit a house.
Yeah,
I think
but
we.
just to watch a movie on a kid that
Or a really good high
Yeah.
school player, like a really
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
one could do
But
it.
yeah, so how they had it configured, actually, you're more worried about foul balls, and so that, and so yeah,
Cars probably are more at risk
Yeah.
than homes, really,
Okay.
which is fairly typical at a ball
So,
field.
council, if you're okay, we would like to have one more visit with this donor just to make sure where we need to be at on things. And then we have to make that hard decision. Do we still keep the baseball, to keep the 250? Do we move forward with the baseball diamond? And help me out here. I think a soccer field, if we decide that it was not going to be a baseball diamond, but a soccer field's about 250,000.
Well, it's a little more now in cost, but comparatively, our bid for finishing the rest of the landscape, which includes all that kind of outer ring landscape, and the soccer field area, is about 850,000. I don't remember the exact dollars and cents, but so if you want to say 150 of that's that outer ring, then you about 700 for that soccer field area. So maybe 350 a soccer field. That's kind of a big. They're big soccer fields, because basically, if you look at the layout, while there's 2 soccer fields shown, there's really almost room for 3. And the idea is the soccer fields can shift so that you don't just get the worn out goalie box, yeah, something comparable to one of our soccer fields. If you split that area in half, it's about 350.
Andy, do you know how many soccer fields do we have in the city of Highland currently?
Josh is here. He might be
Hey,
able
Josh.
to answer.
How many could we
For
full
full
size.
size.
4 full size.
Full size. What about U8s?
Like, I guess areas that are being used as soccer fields. So you have like Mitchell Hollow, Canterbury North, you have the Lone Peak Fields.
And we have some discussion on others that.
I thought it was 13.
might be.
My
You know,
recollection, it was
yeah.
around 10, 13, somewhere in there.
We were told we had 11 at a
Yeah.
previous council meeting before the 2 new ones in Mountain Ridge.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that opens up a question.
Yeah.
Do we need more soccer fields, or would it be good to have another ball diamond? And I think I would lean towards the latter.
Okay, let me, and I honestly, we need to know that if there's going to be a change like that, we need to know now, certainly, because if we want this park done this year, and I think that was one of the highest goals of council, right, at our budget retreat, changes like that, any changes ultimately, we need to make decisions in the next month.
I think I lean towards the baseball field also because we have a donor there. But I think originally this park started out as baseball fields originally. If you can, Josh, is that correct?
It did.
That is
Okay.
correct.
What you're saying is when they pitched the idea to the residents for bonding and buying that property, they showed I think a baseball fields on it.
I think it was like 4 baseball fields, or was it 8?
So-
I lean towards the baseball field. I think if Salt Lake gets a MLB team,
I know, that's what I was thinking. It's
the
happening.
interest is really going to grow. It just grows. I grew up in Southern California with the Los Angeles Dodgers. I mean, we had every corner, empty lot was a baseball field.
Yeah.
We'll have to convert Highland Glen Park to hockey if we get a hockey team.
Oh, those are my dreams.
I did not see that coming at all. So some of the rest of this is going to change. The numbers are certainly going to change from what I'm
What you're
showing
saying
you
is
tonight.
so what, council, what we are hearing from at least 3 council members is that even if we only have the $250,000 donation, you would like to move forward with baseball diamond and not consider trying to put a soccer field in there because you feel like we already have that amenity. In is that
That is my
Scott,
feeling.
I've heard that, and Kim. And Ron,
Does that factor in surf soccer, however we decide with surf soccer?
Well, that's where it's surf soccer that you'd have. That was where council, if they had surf soccer, 200,000 could come into play into this. Say,
Yes.
hey, you took our soccer fields, we want to use it for baseball.
I mean, because right now the only consideration would be the Lone Peak fields for that. It just means that there's not soccer fields being added, right? I know that was one of the considerations is we're adding soccer fields. So if you're not anymore, does that change?
Oh no, there's still going to be 2 soccer fields.
We're talking about 2 soccer fields.
I'm sorry, but I think you're adding another baseball field, which means no more soccer fields.
No. I think they're saying 2 soccer. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. 2 soccer fields, but keep the baseball diamond.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were adding a baseball diamond. We were going to
No,
2.
no,
Oh,
just
okay.
one baseball
2 soccer
Good
fields,
question.
1
And
ball
2
diamond.
soccer field. I'm glad we clarified that.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'm
this
completely
design,
misunderstood.
It's the design we see in
right?
front
Okay.
of us is we're staying. We're not moving the baseball diamond. The baseball diamond's moving forward. Even if we just
Yeah,
have
I
a
thought
few-
you were saying add a second one over here somehow.
No.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
Now we see the picture.
oh, wait, a second one.
That's why I was very confused. Thank you. Okay. So moving forward with a baseball field there. Okay. All right. We'll work with that donor to move forward there. Second question, I do need your answers tonight, is what, so I'll show you kind of phase 2, what the budget's looking like. I need to know from you what amenities are important enough to you that you want the city to find additional funds for. So if you remember from our council retreat, the budget retreat, one of the highest things you ranked was we want to finish Mountain Ridge Park, right? We want the money, any money needed in this upcoming budget to go towards Mountain Ridge Park. So I need to know how deep am I digging, right? Hopefully Brooklyn's idea is fantastic and we raise a couple $1 million and we don't have to have this conversation, but in case we don't, I need to know what amenities are important enough to you. So the top table is the phase 2. We called them priority amenities because in our mind, that was kind of what was originally said, this is what's going in the park, for sure. And so the first little bit, you've got, like Andy said, the landscaping, the trail, and then some kind of cool donor memorial areas, bricks, something like that. And then some of the non-fun but necessity items such as storage sheds, garbage cans, garbage dumpsters. Then you've got the baseball field section, and that's just the city portion, assuming that $250,000 does come through. And then the construction costs that come with that. Oh, darn it, that's not a deficit anymore. I'm sorry. This got changed at 6 o'clock, and I didn't finish. I missed a couple of things. So all of those things come out. We actually have a surplus, ignore the word
Can I just,
deficit,
Andy?
of $200,000
And
out.
this is the first time I've seen a number on the storage shed of 220. I think I hadn't seen that before.
Honestly, it's a guess based on what we've gotten back from the cemetery building. How large
Yeah.
is that,
Yeah, that's,
Andy?
so right now we're designing the storage shed as 24 feet wide, 30 feet deep. So if you recall, our 40 by 40 bid for the building at the cemetery was just a little under 300,000, and so putting a little budget to it, we're just trying to attribute it. The plan is we're almost ready to go out to bid with our parks building, and so we're going to bid this with the parks building, hoping to get the economies of scale and get one contractor to build them both. So we really don't know the cost there. What we didn't want to be was low, so we're hoping we're high, and if we're high, that's great. We don't want to be low. Aaron and I do not want to be the contractor for the parks building or the storage building. We don't want to be the low bidder.
Andy, and we still need a storage shed there for $220,000 when we're getting the parks maintenance building across the street for
1.9.
$2.2 million.
Well, you'll have the opportunity to say no to that bid. Certainly, we're designing it and we're including it in our planning right now. And the purpose for the storage building is as much as anything for the events. right? So when we're having the events, we've got the different elements that need to show up at the park at different times, and there's a lot of planning that goes on. And so as we worked with the events, part of the idea was to have a building that was big enough that we could have some of the core needs for the park there, and then also have a place where events can keep, for the fling, the different elements they need, the PA systems and the tables and the pop-ups and all of that right there on site, so that, when it's time for the next event, they run over to the storage shed, they grab it out, set it up, and it's all there at Fling Central, if you will. So it's not just for parks purposes. We do have some needs for storage that, this park introduces. You've got the sails that we have to take down in the winter that are on the playground that aren't there now. You don't see them there now, but and then we have simply the fact that this is now going to be kind of the main focal point. So we have some equipment that we think would be beneficial to have right on site for quick access for maintenance. But certainly as a council, you'll have an opportunity when we get those bids to say that's too much.
Sure. I'm just trying to understand because Aaron is telling us that we need to say what our priorities are tonight,
Yeah.
and that's a considerable amount of money. So I'm just trying to understand.
Sure. Sure. But that's the reason why we consider it an essential, is because it's such a big park. It's going to be such a focal point that we feel like there does need to be some storage of materials there on site, for both the events and then for the park care.
How big did you say again you needed storage for?
Right now we're planning it 24 feet wide, 30 feet deep, is what we're laying.
Apologies if this has already been discussed and I just missed it. But would a metal building like we're talking about for the cemetery work here? For this?
It could. We could certainly go lesser. What we're laying out is one that kind of matches what the council wanted when we were talking about the cemetery, and there's been a lot of attention paid to a lot of the aesthetics here. The coordination between the flagpole and the pavilions, et cetera. And so, based on the cemetery discussion, we've kind of figured that that's the direction we were going, was something to a little higher quality. We'll follow your direction. A place to keep things warm and dry. The thing that I guess I would encourage is relative to the storage building. Before we go one way or other, let us get that bid. Let us get that bid from that contractor, and let us see whether we're really talking $220,000 or whether we're talking, less. Because right now we're just trying to point in the right direction, and we're already designing that building. So let's get that bid, and then let's see where it's at, and see how far we've made it, what donations we have, and then we can make the go no go decision on that.
Sounds good. I totally agree
Councilman
with
Smith.
the need for one.
So let's back up. Your numbers up here, what you're saying, without us doing any of these potential amenities, we spending $2,224,486. Based off our funding, we have $236,000 that we could use towards these other potential amenities, correct?
Correct.
Right.
And so what we're asking, other than this storage building, which we kind of also, hey, is there some potential amenities
Yeah.
that we see here if we have that funding of $236,000 that we'd like to look at?
Mayor, can I
And-
point out something about the storage building? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt,
Nope.
Aaron. So I think one thing we need to remember is a few years ago, we were going to build the large park maintenance building on the west side of the park. And then after, the neighbors were very unhappy about that. So I think that's one of the reasons we ended up proposing a large park maintenance behind the community center. So I think we need to be careful with what this building looks like and how big it is, because I think there's going to be some unhappy neighbors about it because they thought the park maintenance building was behind the community center. Do you know what I mean? So a metal shed might not be the best option. And I'm just kind of wondering, like Brittany did, whether we can't stage most of this stuff out of the park maintenance building. But that's just
And we-
kind of my opinion.
And we can certainly make that decision yet to come. What we've used as kind of our size guideline, just for a visual, is the smaller pavilions. So this building's meant to be
Small.
approximately the size of the smaller buildings or smaller, and approximately the height of the smaller pavilions, so that it's not a dominant feature on the site and it's just a supporting component to the activities of the park. Like I said, let's get the bid, and then we'll look at where we are in our spendings and how everything's taking shape with the baseball field, and then, you know, we can say thumbs up or thumbs down, or
And-
something in between.
We absolutely, you know, can go lesser if needs be. I mean, but I hope, I want council to make sure you understand that this is not something staff is trying to be extravagant about. The sage shells Andy's talking about are currently locked in a bathroom, so there are less bathrooms available at the park because we have nowhere to put the sage shells right now. And granted, we will have a parks maintenance building, and that will free up space. But honestly, we've filled that up already based on the number of trucks we have and things like that. So, but we're happy to look at alternatives and trying to make that less costly.
Yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to understand. I know that Kim, I'm going to speak for Kim. Kim and I are in favor of garbage cans at the park. Yes?
Yeah. I was just thinking also, I know, like, you know, you've got Heritage Park right there also, and you have that storage building there as well that we don't utilize that we could use.
I might be wrong. I thought we did utilize that. So that's maybe my misunderstanding
Where's
there.
storage Vernon Will?
So it's, I think Lone Peak Baseball stores their stuff
Oh,
there.
I'm sorry. I was
you're
thinking a
talking-
different building.
At Heritage
Mhm.
Park?
The Snack Shack building.
The Snack Shack, yeah.
think
We
the
can
ba-
store stuff there too.
We could. But there is.
Okay, to be decided on the storage shed.
Okay.
But with the remaining money, okay, so there is a link in your email and there's a QR code on the, I forgot to pass these out. Now that we're almost done with this discussion, Mayor and Council, would you like to have your own copy of this? I'm sorry. There's a QR code on the back page, a survey, something similar that we did on our council retreat. And what we'd like you to do is look at all of these amenities and rank them. So if they end up in the category where it's important or essential, right, the top two categories, staff will recommend to you, council, in this next year's budget, here's how we can fund those. If they end up in the unimportant section or unnecessary section, that's kind of what our guide will be as a cutoff. So ninja course, noise blocking materials, security cameras, futsal fence, so that would go around the basketball / futsal court to just so that it's easier to play futsal, right, and the ball doesn't go elsewhere. A permanent stage would help, number one, for fleeing. Number two, it would provide an opportunity for the Arts Council to maybe hold, you know, movies in the park or concerts in the park or something like that. Every time we rent the Lehigh stage, it's about $1,500, I think. And so just an opportunity to be able to do things like that. A fence around the playground fence means the additional fence that we've talked about to help prevent kids from running places that parents aren't intending them to go. What exactly that looks like remains to be seen. We'd like to, if council prioritizes that, we'd like to talk with parents about that more.
Wait, so Aaron, we already have a fence all in front of the playground so they can't run into the parking lot. Where else would it prevent them from running?
So if you remember, some parents, especially children who have autism, came to us with concerns that it wasn't enough fence because there's still areas for them to run. And so honestly, there's not a great way to fence anything else. So we want to have a conversation with them about what else would you need to feel more safe if council feels that's a priority, that something more they want to add there. Gates, I think, were another thing, if I remember, council member.
Right. They're basically just saying, and I think it's for all the younger kids, not just those with special needs. But the special needs parents were the one that were very sensitive to this, and it's having just 3 or 4 from the playground area, have 3 or 4, maybe 5 points of egress, and everything else kind of fenced in, so that they're not, if they've got 3 kids there, they're not worried about every single moment where all 3 of them are. It's similar to what we have at the splash pad, and they're saying that that's sufficient, even though the gates are always open, but they can look at those points of egress and make sure their kid's not headed towards that.
And then additional security cameras, how many do we have right now? We have 16.
16.
I'm sorry, 16. We do have them shooting towards phase 2, but nothing like set up to be in phase 2. So we can like see a general view, but if we need more or want more security back there.
Well, and then as you put down also on the pickleball noise blocking, we don't know, if we start having a lot of complaints, it also raises up, but if we're not getting
Yeah,
complaints.
That's what I was thinking.
Do we have any complaints?
Answer that now, but.
That's a fair point. Knock on wood, no, we have not yet had complaints that at least the city has heard. So maybe that's a very good point, Mayor Osler. Maybe that's if it comes up as a problem, we deal with it then.
I did talk to neighbors that line that back wall because I'm like, who else is there that could hear it? And they said they don't hear the pickleball.
So the new neighborhood to the south?
Yeah, like
Okay.
the Paul Adams and those guys that line the back of it.
That's great news. Other conversations that have come up is playground lighting. Do we want to light the playground? It is very popular. Do we want to add lights to the trail? Andy, do you want to pull up that picture? There's a new playground in Provo that's done this, and I think it looks really nice and provides a safety element. I mean, it is costly. It's honestly, the biggest cost is running power all throughout that quarter mile of trail. But it kind of provides more of a safety feature for individuals who want to use the trail at night. So that's an option.
How
we
much of
thought.
our trails are lit right now? We have a lot
Any?
of trails in the city.
0, according to our parks
Yeah,
superintendent.
so, I mean, we have trails that we can talk about security, but that's just this one
So maybe
park.
that's unnecessary in
Yeah,
your mind.
Exactly, because we've got a lot of trails that probably have more of a concern for security than this park would have.
You're right. And I think, honestly, this is a gamut. This is not staff advocating for any of those. This is your jewel park at this point. So we felt like we wanted to throw out, okay, this is phase 2. We want to be done after this. Here are all of the options we've heard. And we're welcoming, if Jay's ready to edit survey, if there's any more that you want to add to that. Annie, thank you. Additional smaller pavilions. Do you want to add some pavilions in the back towards the trail and the tree area, or do we want to add lighting to the sports fields, right? We've got lights on the pickleball courts, lights at the pavilion. Do we have lights at the pavilions? Yes.
So
Certainly. I mean, we have pretty good directional lighting, but that's
would that include the baseball field or?
baseball and soccer fields. Because right now the baseball field is not lit. We don't have it. That 780 does not include lighting it.
I do know with the baseball field, in order to be part of a league like an RMSB or Wasatch Gold or something, they do require your baseball field to have lighting. So most of the teams around here, they use Riverton City Park or Orem City Park
Because they have lighting.
in order to do that.
I'd forgotten that. You're right. Councilmember Rodella. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, this is a question for Rob. So in the discussion on lighting on the trail, I would assume, and I think Ron's concerns about, we have a lot of trails in the city that are not lit, but I think in a major public park that'll be heavily used, I would think our liability would be improved if we actually had that trail lighted. Is that true or not? What do you think? What's your opinion?
The city doesn't have a lot of light in terms of dangers on the trail. If it's not lit and there's a weird step or something like that, that's where the city could have liability. In terms of someone could get attacked on a dark trail, the city isn't responsible for crimes committed by third parties. As policy, it's always a good idea to have some good lighting to help facilitate the use of trail, help people feel safe in their use of the trail. I always think that's a good idea, and hopefully to discourage that type of activity.
Okay, thank you.
If council feels like they're ready to make that decision now, or we would be happy to show you the results of this tonight, or if you want to take some time to think about that, we could wait until Tuesday as well. Councilmember Smith.
I would like a little more time to think about it if I could.
Absolutely. Are there any that we have not shown that you want us to add
Well,
on
there.
here?
If you remember, we received an email from residents about a splash pad. I understand it's very expensive. I know there's been a lot of interest. Right. We'll probably have a petition that's going to be presented on Tuesday for a splash pad. I don't know if that's something. I mean, I'd guesstimate it'd be $1 million, but if that's something, I don't. Council, how serious are you on looking at a splash pad? We can talk about it. Is there a serious?
I think Nathan quoted us at 350 when we brought it up, like back in the day, that it cost $350,000. Am I off on that, Brittany?
I don't remember. It was
Because we
a
asked
lot.
Harvey Park, and that's what they said.
Yeah,
it cost
maybe
$350.
maybe that's what it was. That was. I feel like everything has doubled since then. But
Yeah.
we talked about it and thought it was so much that it was not feasible.
I think we should still put it on there though, because it is something that
People
people are
asked about.
gathering a petition for.
We will add that. With that, do you want, it'll take us some time to kind of come up with an estimate on cost there. So how about we send you out the survey when we're ready, when we've got that information?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
If some of these items have operational costs associated with them, are those significant operational costs? Or are they just sort of incidental to the park? If there's significant operational costs, it'd be good to see
Like
the
a splash pad
ongoing-
might cost us $80,000 a year to maintain.
Right. I'm thinking specifically the splash pad and the lighting as kind of the two that come to mind as having operational costs.
I would guess, although I don't know, we don't have one, I would guess that the Ninja course and the timing systems may take some, a little bit more significant operational costs. I don't know. I'm just speculating because I know that big part of those are, the kids like to time themselves and keep those accurate. That's a guess. But,
Andy, can you remind me how long you store the information from the security cameras for and how much that costs?
120 days is how long the system that we currently have in place stores it for 120 days.
And they charge you per camera?
Yeah, it's per camera. By the time you buy the camera and have it installed and then pay their service fee, it's around $3,500 a camera. For the 16 cameras that we have in, it was $42,000, for what we have right now. So,
Some operational cost as well.
yeah, every 5 years you got to pay you pay their re-up fee, if you will.
Mayor, I'd like to ask Aaron a question. So you want us to prioritize the amenities, correct? So I think how many of these amenities we can do is really a function of what funding we have available. So it seems like if we happen to get more fundraising or we have more park impact fees, then we could consider more of these things. But are you just wanting kind of ranking? Because I don't think we can rule out some of these things until we know if there's no funds. Because the goal with this park has always been to do it without raising taxes or bonding. And, if there's other ways that we have funds coming in, I would think we could do more of these things. But if we don't have the funds, then we don't do them. And so is it just you want a ranking, basically?
I want you to rate them essentially 1 to 4, of how important they are. Kind of like so it was the last exercise we did at the budget. And so in my mind, Councilmember Smith, if those end up in 3 and 4, that's you telling me I want you to find funds for those. And hopefully we can fundraise and get those. But if not, what staff will do is when we present the budget to you, it will have ways of getting those funds, whether that would be additional park impact fees or pulling out of general fund reserves to finish the park. I think those are going to be having not yet dived fully into the budget, I'd say those are the two most likely sources. If council ranks these all high and says we need them all, those are the sources we would have to look to see, to raise additional funds.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything more we want to talk
Hey,
about
can I just
Mountain
ask,
Ridge Park?
You're saying rank. Where do we rank them at? I understand saying essential or that. But can we move it up and down?
So no, because I didn't want you to have to pair one thing against the other.
You're just saying if it's
1
needed.
through 4, exactly. And so if they end up in 3 or 4, that's you telling us, yes, they're needed. If it's more in the 1-2 range, that means that no, staff doesn't need to find money to put those amenities in the
Okay,
park.
help me where you say 1, 2. It says essential.
Sorry, sorry. If it's essential, I can't remember the categories.
Essential, important but not essential, would be nice but not important. And
Correct.
Okay, That's your rating. I just want, when you're saying 1 through 4, I just want to make sure I wasn't, okay.
Okay.
With that, is there anything else we need to go over with on the park?
I don't think so right now.
Okay, let's go ahead and let's move to 40, the discussion will now go to 4800 West. Andy, we'll turn some time to you to, Council, I think a lot of you are aware of 4800 West, where we're going to be talking about is going to the south. If you're at SR 92 and south, it's called North County. If we go north, going up, we call it 4800 West. When we start hearing 4800 West, we're traditionally saying we're talking about the road. There's north of SR 92 and north of North County Boulevard.
So, Council, for the most part, I'm going to turn time over to Ryan Hales, who is our traffic consultant for this section of roadway. He's got a presentation that we're going to go through and talk a little bit about this section of roadway. We have the possibility to submit for funding with Mountain Lands, and believe it or not, it's coming around, and we're 2 years later. And a few things have changed since we last looked at this corridor. One of the things that's changed is we now know that before there was some question as to could this section of roadway be, the congestion be mitigated by simple adjustments to the timing. Following the discussions we had before, we went to UDOT and we said, please optimize the signal timing here. Do all you can to minimize the queues with the signal timing. They did do that, and it did help, but it didn't completely mitigate the issues or solve the issues. The second thing that major development is following some of the discussion, we went back and we looked at and analyzed, and Mountain Lands Association of Governments helps fund a study to look at the potential of a road through the gravel pit that could relieve some congestion from this area. While that is physically possible, economically, it was very expensive for the benefit gained. And the traffic studies associated with that also found that, we're really, at that peak, that road would draw 5,000 trips. And wouldn't draw enough trips away from this roadway corridor to really pay off. That was about just under $27 million, $26.5 million, and while it's physically possible, economically very, very difficult, probably very difficult to fund. And so we're back in another round of MAG funding, and Mountain Land has talked with us and has said, look, we think this is a good project. But their comments to us were, if you are going to come back and you are going to talk about trying to alleviate the congestion there, let's do it once and do it right, so to speak. Let's in other words, ask for the right amount of money, come back and fix the right things so that we aren't talking about this again in 3 or 4 years. Let's come in, let's fix it once, let's do it right. So we ask Ryan and his team, and we've got Ryan and Joseph here tonight with Hales Engineering to talk us through their findings and give us some recommendations. So Ryan, I'm going to go to the slideshow for you, and we do have a little remote for you.
Is it up there
There's
already?
a couple up here.
Is it the little small black one?
It's hiding. Oh, is it that one?
Is that one?
Oh, yeah, there you go. The right button is advance.
Okay.
That I do not know how to tell you to turn on. Brooklyn, how does he turn that?
Okay.
You push down on it for long?
Hold on, the little advancer. Yeah.
I'll try it here in a
It's
minute.
green, it's on.
I'll try it in just a minute. But first of all, I want to thank everybody for.
Is the Ryan, is a green button on?
It is.
On the mic. On the mic.
Oh, on the mic? Yeah, it is on. Do I need to lean into that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try that. Mayor, Council, thank you for letting us come tonight. Joseph Browning is back here in the audience, and Joseph has done quite a bit of work on this. He's done a very good job, and great to be before you again. Certainly there are controversial items that will come before you, and many times traffic and transportation is one of those items. where you look at it and there's costs and there's benefits. And sometimes there's impacts when you look at traffic and transportation. In this case, there will be some benefits, but there's always costs associated with that as well. When we look at the long term, and I'll try and advance through these slides. I think I have about 11 or 12 slides, just so you know. I'll try and go fairly quickly through them. In this introduction slide, it just kind of outlines what we're going to be going through tonight, step by step, and I'll talk about each one of them. But there were a lot of previous studies that were done. UDOT has done a wonderful job at looking at this intersection. As Andy talked about, they've come in and tried to maximize the signal timing to make the operations work better. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. Existing traffic volumes, it's good for you to see what those volumes look like right now, but we also look into the future. So the Mountain Land Association of Governments, you're probably all familiar with MAG, they do a wonderful job of looking at future land use and the transportation network. When they look at those combined, they identify how much new traffic will be in the area between now and year 2050. And so I'm going to talk about those 2050 projections and what we're going to need to solve the transportation issues by year 2050. That's the future travel demand model, the volumes. We're going to talk about crash data as well. We did look at the crash statistics in the area so we could identify what type of safety concerns are out here at the intersection, what kind of improvements can be done, and then some other considerations that we'll go through. Some of those are here in Highland, and some are actually in Alpine, just to the north, along 4800. Very quickly, and I won't read each slide to you, so bear with me as I go through it. But the first study was completed. It was the SR92 Access and Circulation Study. It was a study to come and look at SR92 to see how traffic flows east and west along that corridor. And what does it really mean? How can that be improved with UDOT improvements? And they've done a good job of looking at that. MAG did it, their own study, the gravel pit. Andy had spoken about that as well in that Connector Road feasibility study. So we reviewed all of these studies, and then the Highland Park connection study that we completed, we also took some of that into consideration as well as we look at those volumes. And UDOT's 4800 West SR92 signal retiming, that was July 2022. And when they implemented those signal timing improvements, it actually improved the crash data. The crash data lowered for a couple of years. Well, it lowered for year 2022. It has since gone back up. There were 11 crashes in 2022, and there were 16 in 2023. I'm going to look at Joseph. Did I say that right? 11 and 21 and okay. 11 and 21 and 16 and 22. 23 data has not been verified yet, so we don't have the 23 final on those crashes. But UDOT has tried to improve it. MAG is looking at it. Everybody in the county is looking at this intersection. It's very high, and some of those volumes we'll talk about in just a moment.
So Ryan, as you bring up crash, what would
Yeah.
be a normal crash like at other intersections similar? I mean, is this high in numbers or is this average?
I would say it's average. I don't think we're extraordinarily high in any direction, but we want to make sure that we try and improve it as we go. And one of the things that we noticed on this image that's on the left-hand side of your screen, that's the morning peak hour volumes. And you'll see the high flow and traffic demand on that eastbound to southbound right. There are 1,136 cars that are making that right turn. In the opposite direction, so northbound left, we have 696 cars. And because these are occurring in different locations, northbound versus eastbound to southbound, we've got to retime those lights. And UDOT's done a very good job of retiming the light to maximize traffic flow. But one of the things that we see is those queues extend back. And as the queues extend back, if you're a driver and you're going down the road, you're not anticipating that that queue in front of you is stopped. You might think it's a rolling queue, and so it catches some people off guard. And that's where some of the crashes occur. So we saw a lot of rear-end crashes. There's various different movements just because of the queuing. The volumes, I won't spend a lot of time in the evening peak hour. I'll just point out there were 725 eastbound to southbound rights at SR92, and then 705 in the opposite direction. So northbound turning left to go west. This next slide is a slide of the MAG travel demand model. We wanted to show this overlaid on an image so that you can get an idea of what it looks like. We ran a sensitivity analysis. So we look at the MAG future forecast. This is a year 2050 analysis. And then we add traffic volumes. We grow it by 20%, 15%, 10%. If it grows by anywhere above 10%, above what MAG has projected, this intersection is going to become very, very congested. And so we're right on that borderline in year 2050. And so there's some improvements that we need to do. With those improvements, we can run that extra 5% of the traffic and get it through. Those future volumes look like this. In the morning peak hour, we anticipate that that traffic volume that's eastbound to southbound right will be about 1,385 vehicles. That is a lot of traffic turning right, going down south to the high school. Now, it's not all high school traffic, but what you get is you get commuter traffic plus school traffic at that intersection at the exact same time. That's what you get in the morning. In the evening peak, you see a northbound left turn of 875. The school traffic is not in that background traffic, so this is primarily commuter traffic or just the background traffic. When we look at the volumes, they're getting very, very high, and so we've got to figure out what type of improvements we can use to look at handling that much traffic. Talking about crash data, we did a comprehensive analysis of 4 years, so 2018 to year 2022. We wanted to look at the crash types. The most common crash type was the rear end type crash, again, where the queue is stopped and you're not anticipating it so far from the signal, and people don't realize it and they don't stop in time. They're going a little too fast. There was one severe crash, and I just want to point this out. It was a westbound left turning vehicle from SR 92 going southbound on North County Boulevard, and he failed to yield to a cyclist. Obviously, force equals mass times acceleration. You all know Newton's principles of physics. Just not a good situation. So we want to try and make all users at this intersection safe. We want to make sure the cars are safe. We want to make sure the pedestrians are safe, and we want to make sure the bicyclists are safe. And so in the future build, there are a couple things that will be added into this. One would be a northbound path that would be on the right-hand side of this road once it's ultimately built out. And we'll talk about those in just a moment. When we look at those intersection mitigations and the improvements that are necessary for this intersection, again, I said that, you know, the additional traffic brings capacity problems and safety problems. So it's both capacity and safety. The first things that I'll point out are that in the future, it looks like we will need dual eastbound to northbound left turns. So that dual northbound left turn creates dual northbound receiving lanes. So we need 2 lanes going north on 4800 West. I'll talk about the distance here on the next couple of slides. In the eastbound direction, that right turn pocket, because we have so much traffic turning right, we now need to lengthen that pocket out and make that pocket just that much longer. So if it's feasible, we think it would be wise to widen that pocket and lengthen it. The next improvement is right now, under current conditions, in that westbound direction, we have a single through lane, and then we also have a shared through and a right turn lane. It's a combined lane on the outside. What happens when you have a through vehicle, the right turning vehicles can't get around that through vehicle. You've all seen it, and you've all seen those intersections. If we add a right turn pocket, it will make the intersection function that much better. Okay, 4800 West. So north of SR 92, we're talking about an extension that would run basically from SR 92 all the way up to 11200. That would be a second northbound through lane. That gives us the capacity for the dual left turns to be received and to be able to make their position as they go to the north and move into the lane to go through the intersection or to turn right on 11200. Now, some of you might be asking, is there that much traffic turning right on 11200 that we need a full lane to go all the way there? There's not. But what we find is that in that northbound direction, if you were to turn the corner with dual left turn lanes and get parallel to another car that's just turned that corner and you start jockeying for lanes, you need 200 feet for them just to get parallel and start going to the north. And then you need another 990 feet before you can merge them together. That 990 feet plus the 200 is 1,190 feet. It puts you just right in the middle of that cul-de-sac on the right-hand side. It's cut off a little bit, but you can see the street that goes towards the east. It's not safe to have a merge area through an intersection because people are looking over their left shoulder at the merge when they're coming up to the street corner. Not a safe condition. So the safest condition is to carry it up to 11200. If we push it north of 11200, we have the same problem. There's another intersection a little further to the north that would compound that. So we think tying it off at 11,200 is the safest. In the southbound direction, for many of you who have driven this road, the queues on a routine basis actually back up to 11,200 in the southbound direction. I've seen some pictures of that, and I think Andy captured some this morning about at 7:45. There were cars stacked all the way up to 11,200. So we're thinking 2 lanes in the southbound direction make a lot of sense. That gives you 2 lanes of stacking that would go all the way down to the intersection. In addition, that right turn pocket, we would like to extend that backwards by about 100 feet. Now that doesn't solve the problem. What it means is on occasion, those lanes will back up. They'll back up past the right turn pocket, and we call that queue starvation, where right turning vehicles can't get into the queue. But if we back it up another 100 feet, we have more opportunity when the light turns green for people to fill in that pocket in that southbound direction. And that's what we want, to keep the traffic flowing. One of the questions that is also a little bit of a safety condition, the golf course and where it sits, and this is south of SR 92, as we have that free right turn pocket, we need to carry that acceleration lane a little bit further down the road before merging them back in. The same problem exists if they're trying to merge back in before either one of those 2 street accesses, just north of the golf course or east of it, they would have problems. So we want to carry that to the south of the 2nd Street on 4800 West and then merge them back in. So they would merge in right about where the golf hole comes right out to the highway. And I think there's enough room. It looks like we have a wide right-of-way. We can probably sneak that in. In the northbound direction, we also want, because we now have the 2 lanes going northbound, north of 92 on 48th, we also want to have 2 lanes on the south side to fill in and shorten the signal timing. What it does, by having more lanes going northbound, the 2 lanes going through and the double left turn lanes, we can compress the time and give more time for the eastbound movements. So we take away from the northbound and add to the eastbound. So it's a balancing of how we move that clock to get the traffic through the intersection.
This previous slide, could you go back to it?
I can. This slide or one before?
This scenario requires the purchase of that lot. It's Mark Hadfield's property, but it's the corner right there where the continuous right is.
Yeah.
You're widening that. You're putting 2 lanes going south, and then you're adding the merge lane. That's going to go into his property. Is that correct?
Yeah, more than likely.
Is the plan to buy that property?
We have not looked at all the right-of-way impacts yet. I know Avenue Consultants is doing a detailed outline of that. So we'll have some diagrams and we'll know better probably next week, or even as soon as end of this week we should know.
And also the same question on the property across the street, adding that right southbound turn lane. It looks like you're going to be taking some trees out of that property there.
Yeah.
I think, Councilmember Campbell, that to speak to the southeast corner, there's going to need to be an acquisition there of that property. Really, as we look at any of these widenings, by and large, they're going to involve acquisition of property. I think it's a safe assumption to say that any of these that we're looking at is in some measure going to require some additional property from these parcels.
Okay, thank you.
I wish we could put all these improvements in without having those impacts, but unfortunately, sometimes we just have those that are necessary. I promise I'm down to the last 2 slides, but as we look a little bit further to the north, who said traffic wasn't interesting? Aaron, was that you? As we look at what's happening at Healy Boulevard, there's been a lot of concern about traffic coming out of Healy Boulevard. Currently, it's a one-way stop condition coming out to a T intersection. There are some improvements that could be handled at that intersection. One idea might be to make that a roundabout. If a roundabout were installed there, all the traffic would flow much more freely, and it wouldn't be as much of a concern because we'd be slowing traffic down along that route.
So just FYI for the council, Healy Boulevard would now be in Alpine.
Yes. Yeah, and I apologize. We are talking a little bit further to the north at this point.
By way of explanation, since we are looking at this project, and you recall the project that got funded was involved taking the trail and some roadway improvements, cleared the roundabout in Alpine. When Ryan looked at this corridor, we actually look at the whole corridor so that because ultimately we're going to use this traffic study as the basis for some of the detailed decisions we make on the whole corridor. So a couple of these recommendations are in Alpine, and those are Alpine's decisions, but we did ask him to look at the corridor as a whole, because we are looking at it as a project as a whole, which involves our partners in Alpine. So,
Yeah, so if it's feasible, a roundabout would work well there, and it would also work as traffic calming. It would slow people down, so that's, double benefit. The next intersection is Ridge Drive, where it comes into 4800. Just striping a separate westbound left and right turn pocket. And we'll pass these recommendations on to Alpine so they can look at it. It would be safer and make that intersection flow a little more safely as well. With that, we're really down to a questions. If there's any questions I might be able to address.
Naturally, a lot of people are going to be concerned about going up in the 4800 west and the Highland side about property acquisition as we widen. Do you have any guesstimation on property acquisition?
That's a great question. I wish I did at this point. One thing that I would give to you as an idea is that when we look at transportation master planning, one thing that we typically do is we're trying to look into the future. We're trying to look out towards year 2050. And we just know that as properties become available, that might be the proper time to buy them, depending on how it goes or what funding comes from MAG. There may be opportunities to speed up projects or delay them a little bit. But these are certainly improvements that would be necessary. I think with the Align work that's being done by Avenue, we'll have a lot better idea of what kind of right-of-way takes would be necessary and how many property acquisitions might come through.
I think Councilmember Bills, you had some questions.
Yeah, I had a couple questions. Hey, Andy, when is that light at Night Avenue going in?
It's going in any time. I mean, they placed the signal bases and they're working on it. So, it should be functional within a month, maybe even sooner.
Dude, that's the most terrifying place in the world at 215.
Yeah.
It was horrible. It was so
Yeah,
scary.
we're really excited about
Over there.
the signal light being added tonight.
Could you go back a couple of slides to the picture of the intersection at Highway 92?
Absolutely. Maybe. I'm challenged by the controller. I'm stuck. It
Oh, it's
doesn't seem to be
not liking to go back. Did I make that not work? Sorry.
There we go.
That one. So you have, I'm trying to understand where there would be double turn lanes. So there are already double turn lanes on a 4800 from the south turning west.
Yeah.
Right?
So northbound to westbound.
And then you would add dual turning lanes from 92 going north.
Eastbound to northbound. So the dual lefts start
Eastbound to northbound.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have dual turn lanes that mirror those on the other sides of the intersection? Because I think that's one of the confusing things of that intersection now is like if you're going north on 4800, there's dual turn lanes, but if you're going south, there aren't.
Yeah, great question. So typically what we do, and you'll see this at many intersections around the state, where we try and have dual left turn lanes match each other. And so in this case, we have the capacity and the need for dual left turns eastbound to northbound. In the westbound direction, since we don't, we would take the one turn pocket away and we would stripe it out. So there would be a stripe in here and the two left turn lanes, the outermost left turn lanes would match so that they oppose each other. And that way the two cars see around each other to make those turns. I hope that described, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
But I mean, that's the other
trying to
concern.
understand.
I'm just trying to, okay, so you have, I think what Councilmember Bills, you're saying, if you look at going eastbound, you're going to have one that will go down to North County, two will be going up, going further east on SR 92, but then you're going to have two that will turn left up into 4800 West. Is that alignment going to make any safety issues way people are facing? Because right now, this intersection, that's the biggest problem. It's all off-centered,
Yeah.
and the people you're facing is not, this person's turning and that person's going straight. This person's trying to get over here. And does this get them still confused at this intersection where we keep getting accidents?
Great question. No, they'll line the lanes up. UDOT's very good at lining those up, and we'll have the offset that I was talking about. It'll line up so much better.
Why would you not have dual turn lanes going all the directions?
Great question. Let me go back a couple slides here. So we have 80 cars that are turning left, And so typically what we look at, there are occasions where we make dual left turn lanes, but the volumes are so low with 80 cars, they can make it through within an hour in a single lane. And so typically they just stripe them out. So it's safer when the cars have separation distance between them as well. And so we try and make the intersection safer by separation distance between the left turns and the through movements. Because sometimes through vehicles back up, right? And somebody goes into the two-way left turn lane and tries to speed around everybody and get into the left turn pockets. So we just give a little bit of a buffer. It's a buffer striping. If we do need them though, it's there and we can use it.
Okay. You're the engineer, so you would know better than me. I was just curious.
That's a great question.
I just had a couple questions. So your projections for 2050, is this based on anticipated population growth in the northwest part of Highland and East Lehigh? Because it's projected that Lone Peak actually, the high schools either kind of plateaued or will drop. Much of the problem that I've observed has been the high school traffic in the morning and then people going home at night. I drove through this intersection at 10:30 a week ago. There was no queue. There was no problem. So you're planning for the busiest times. But is your anticipated increase in traffic here just based on population growth? Because it doesn't appear that the high school thinks they're going to grow.
Yeah, totally understand it. And really it's based on municipal population, so not high school population per se. That would be what we call a specialty generator. And specialty generators in the model would be something like a high school, a hospital, a sporting venue, whether it's Real Salt Lake, Utah Jazz Arena. Things like that are specialty generators. But what we're really looking at is the population base across Utah County. So it's not just Alpine, it's not just Highland, it's not this northeast area, but it's population throughout. And so what we see is there's a lot of patterns, and I'll use areas to the south. I'll use American Fork as an example. Some of the American Fork traffic does travel to the north, hits 92, and then goes out because it's a quick way to get out. Some will certainly go to the south, but people take the path of least resistance. If they want to travel somewhere, they're going to look at how long it's going to take them to get there. I don't drive State Street to go to downtown Salt Lake because it's going to take way too long. So I'll take I-15 like many of you would. And so it's those reasons. They're trying to look at this travel demand model, where the population growth is, where people want to be, and how they're going to travel. And so that's really what the model basis is. And then it also looks at socioeconomics. The socioeconomics that go into it are how big are the households, how many people live in the household, what's the income of the household family. And that really projects how many cars you have in a household. You know, if you're looking at a multifamily household, sometimes they don't have as many cars as a single family household. So a lot of things go into that model. Great questioning.
I know last time we were here and we were discussing this, we kind of had a packed house with residents that lived in this area that were concerned about the safety of essentially, you know, kids walking along the street, trying to cross the street. And basically if we build it, they will come. So increasing traffic in this area. So will it really add to their safety concerns or decrease those safety concerns of the residents that live in that area?
Yeah, and that's a great question. There are different types of concerns. Of course, if you live in the area, you're concerned about walking, biking, and a lot of those things. With the roadway cross section that we've been talking about, there's going to be a trail on the east side of the road on 4800 West. 4800 West, between 92 going to the north. And then I was talking with Andy about it earlier, and he can probably speak more to that than I can. But the connectivity of some of these trails will give you more opportunities to cross underneath 4800 West to the south. And so really there will be more trail opportunities, which will make that safer. Plus it makes it safer for the vehicles. So overall, we're lifting the overall safety of the entire intersection.
It's just a little curious to me that people coming south out of Alpine on 4800 West, turning on right on SR 92 during the morning peak is 115 people. But people coming from SR 92 in the evening after work, if you will, from I-15 onto SR 92 going into Alpine is 230 cars. That's double the number of cars are going into Alpine in the evening than are leaving Alpine in the morning. That is an odd statistic to me.
You know
Unless
what?
there's other ways for them to get where they're going, and they all come back on SR 92.
That's very astute. The other thing you could consider with that is that they may be avoiding the intersection in the morning.
Yes, that could be because of the congestion. It's backed up to 11,200.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
very
think
good.
that's what we're finding is more people are just avoiding the area.
I think that's a signal that something is off on this.
Well, or what could be happening is in the morning, no one's going to those houses, where in the evening they're going to visit friends. And, you know, my sister lived up in that area, and I didn't ever go up to her house in the morning, but I'd be going up there in the evening and things that way.
Yeah.
So there could be more traffic to go up
Yeah.
and see friends or things where they're not in the morning. They're trying to get
Yeah.
to work.
It's just exactly double the
It
number.
is interesting, though. That's an
Which
interesting
is
statistic.
really interesting.
Yeah. It's funny when you start diving into traffic patterns. See, it is fun. I've converted all
Those
of
are
you,
other
right?
questions you have of Ryan Hills. I appreciate it. You know, we anticipate probably as we get prepared to go out to the public, you know, the residents in this area, like Councilmember Riddell mentioned, that there was a lot of concerns from residents. So we're anticipating we're going to have some open houses or some things to try to help, you know, present some things why we're moving forward the way we are, and so they can kind of hear about it before also we just go put it on a planning commission agenda. So, anything else, Andy, on this or?
No, not if you don't have any further questions. We just wanted to give you a chance to kind of hear from Ryan and hear the recommendations on where the lane should transition. I think that's been one of the biggest questions is where should the lane transition? And so I think after talking with Ryan and his evaluations of the pluses and minuses, that we've settled in on the 11,200 is the right place to transition lanes, both in north and southbound direction.
I'd just like to make one comment, and I kind of want to build on Councilmember Rodella's comments. I think we have to ask ourselves, we want our roads to be safe. We want them to handle the traffic, and I really appreciate this study. The question I think we have to ask ourselves is, do we want Highland to be a main corridor for traffic? Because we give up quite a bit when we bring more and more traffic, because as Kim said, if you build it, they will come. And so I just think I'd like to keep that in the back of my mind. I think it's good we want safe roads and things, but we make 6 lanes, we make them bigger and bigger, so we just draw a lot of traffic from other parts of the county. If there's ever the least bit hiccup on the freeway, North County is packed. And yeah, we want to move traffic, but we do want it all go through Highland, I don't know. So I hear people say, we really don't like all this traffic in Highland. So,
You know, Ryan, I think, you know, what Councilmember Smith's talking about, this intersection down 4800 West and going down into North County has expanded, where we didn't used to have the Pleasant Grove interchange. And they keep improving that interchange to make it flow. You know, they just added a double turn to be able to come off of North County over so you can get on the free. Are your numbers, have you looked at that data all the way down as what they're improving there? Because like you said, you know, I think when I lived here 31 years, we would all go down the Alpine Highway, and you'd go down the middle of American Fork. Well, now if I'm going to go to Provo, I don't go down even the Alpine Highway. I'm now coming all the way up here to 4800 West because they've made it flow to get out to the freeway. Have you anticipated all that, you know, change? I mean, because like you said, Scott, really what's happened, they've said this is the area to get things. I was really surprised. I was watching you gave a presentation, I think it was a couple weeks ago in Lehigh, in the traffic that was coming out of Saratoga, Eagle Mountain, how much was going south to Provo versus what was going to Salt Lake. And I was surprised to see, I think it was almost 40%. No, I think you had 30% going into American Fork, but you had 40% going to Provo. I mean, you only had like 10 to 15% was sent to Salt Lake. And I'm going, I'm really surprised. We have a lot of us are going to the Provo area, not always going up to Salt Lake. They seem to be head. Are you seeing that similar traffic patterning in our area?
We are. So to answer both questions, I'll start with Councilmember Smith. But one of the questions that you ask is, it's a very good question. If we were to say, you know what, we don't want to build our roads wide enough to have traffic coming through them, we would have a different problem. The different problem would be that traffic would be trying to find its way through residential neighborhoods to get to different areas. And so sometimes we look at different roads and we say, okay, this road has to be this big. And so we do functional classifications, and we'll look at arterials and say, arterial roads are where we want the traffic. And so we plan them accordingly. If you were to open up a textbook, the traffic engineering says arterials are 1 mile spacing, Major collectors are half-mile spacing, minor collectors are quarter-mile spacing, and locals fill in between. And if you set up a good functional classification like that, and you look at a grid pattern, and I'll use downtown Salt Lake City as an example, you've got such a grid pattern that people will go on various different roads to move to where they want to be, that you don't have single high concentrations on certain roads. Right now in the North County area, to go west and out to I-15, we've got SR 92, and everything is loading onto 92. To go north-south, we've got a couple of roads. You've got 74, which is known as the Alpine Highway as well. I mean, I know both of them are called Alpine Highway. I apologize for the confusion, but 74 runs north-south, and then you've got Canyon Road, and you've also got 4800 West, or North County Boulevard. And so you've got parallel routes, which are good, and we're trying to disperse that traffic. And so there's a balance, and that balance is, I think, what we're striving to find. So we don't want to make one road too big and the other's too small. It's that balance. And then, Mary, you're right. I mean, what we're finding is, you look at the population centers, and Salt Lake City is located in a great geographic location along the Wasatch Front, and so is Provo. And you look at them almost like a dumbbell, so to speak, where you've got a heavy weight on either end, and there's a lot of commerce happening on both ends. And people look at, what does it take for me to drive to downtown Salt Lake in the morning? Do I want to spend 45 minutes in my car on the freeway going to Salt Lake City, or would I rather work in Utah County? And right now we're seeing the gravitational pull in both directions, but it'll probably tip a little bit more towards Utah County. Utah County will actually have a higher growth rate in the future than Salt Lake County. Some of those reasons are obvious. Salt Lake County is filling up, but Utah County still has a lot of space, a lot of green areas that are filling out. So you're going to see that kind of balance out.
I have one last quick question, because I agree that one thing we hear in Highland a lot is we don't actually want to make our roads more convenient because we don't want people driving on them. Why do you make North County two lanes for part of that way when Alpine Highway is only one lane, and it seems like it's a much wider road that could accommodate 2 lanes easier?
And I apologize, when you say Alpine Highway,
The Arctic Circle Road.
SR 74.
It's the Arctic Circle Road and the McDonald's Road.
yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. In this case, what we're looking at is we're trying to get the left turns around the corner that are going into Alpine. And it's really, that's what precipitates it. And that's what makes the 2 lanes in the northbound direction. So we need to have 2 lanes to receive them going northbound. And then in the southbound direction, we need the capacity for the queuing at the intersection of 92. And so it's the balance between the size of the intersection and the delay that would be experienced if we don't do it. We typically grade intersections A through F. A is a very good grade, and F is the worst grade that we could give it. F is you're sitting in a long queue, you're waiting a long time, you're waiting more than, at a traffic signal, it's actually more than 80 seconds. So if you were to sit there with a stopwatch and you measured every car and how long they sat there, it would be the average of all the cars would be 80 seconds. What that really means is somebody who's going north-south might have a 20-second delay. That means your 80-second delay, you just added an extra 60 seconds to it. You're now at 140. So it's balancing the traffic in all directions and making sure that we move it efficiently so that we can all live together, if that makes sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions. I really appreciate it. Mayor, Council, thank you.
Okay, with that, we're now going to move on to our next item. This will be the item on the update on the referendum, and I believe that will be our attorney, Rob Patterson.
Actually, it's going to be headed off by our election official.
Oh.
Right over here, I'll take that one. Thank you, Mayor and Council. The intent of tonight's meeting, can we put that up on the screen, please?
This one?
This one right here, yeah, if you'll make it large for us so that we can all see it. I wish I had really pretty graphics like Brooklyn had, but what I do have yellow highlighted dates. So just the purpose of tonight's meeting is that we're just kind of going to do a kind of a high level overview on the timeline so that you are aware of how this referendum, in fact, our 2 referendums, in fact, will kind of play out. So the first thing that you need to know is that, of course, the local laws were approved. We have 2 referendums, not just one. The referendum was filed, applications were filed for both laws, the development code change as well as the municipal code change. So we are dealing with 2 referendums. The applications were turned in on the same date, so the timeline for those referendums will be the same. The applications were filed with me on January 23rd, and the applications were delivered to Legal and Finance on the 26th, as per state code. So they have received those, and they are currently working on their legal and financial statements, their review. The next date that's really important that you'll need to know about is the arguments for and against this referendum. Those are due to me on February 7th. So City Council, the legislative body, is able to submit their arguments. Once again, I will need to have 2 arguments, one for the Development Code referendum and the other one for the Municipal Code referendum. And then on the sponsor side, they will need to also present those 2 arguments for both referendums. The following day, those arguments are exchanged. So the legislative body's argument will go to the sponsors, and the sponsors' arguments will go to City Council. At that point, you have the chance to read through those arguments, and then you can amend your argument. You're not doing a rebuttal yet. You can simply amend your argument. Okay. Those amended arguments are due back to me on February 12th. So you have just a short turnaround time on that. Also on February 12th is the attorney's deadline to determine if these referendums are indeed legally referable.
So it won't be till the 12th where we know if they are legal?
That will be the final decision from our attorney on the 12th.
The timeline used to be different. If you remember from Wimbledon a few years ago, it used to be a referendum was filed, there was a decision whether it was even referable, and then we went to the arguments and started doing things. The legislature in the last year has compressed all of those timeframes into a basically 25-day window, with, I think, the goal of expediting the referendum process to get to an election a little bit faster, but it does leave us doing some work prior to the decision from me being due, as well as some other information that Stephanie is about to address.
Right, thank you, Rob. So the 12th is a very busy and a very important day, so the attorney determines if it's legally referable. The final arguments are submitted to myself, and then finally the finance and legal impact statements are due as well that day. The following day, really quick turnaround, I'm going to be preparing and distributing the Proposition Information Pamphlet, which is often referred to as the PIP. And that Proposition Information Pamphlet includes the application that we received from the sponsors, it includes the arguments from both sides, and it also includes the fiscal and legal impact statements. Then we turn right around and we go into another very, very busy day, which is going to be February 20th. And what we're going to do is create the referendum petition and signature sheet. That's essentially, we're creating the packet that the sponsors will need to go and take out to gather their signatures. So I will create one copy of that will be given to the sponsors, and then they will be given that, and they'll have to go out and make as many copies as they need. They'll be in charge of the copies and the binding and all that they need to do to prepare those packets to go out and get signatures. Also on that same day, we'll be posting the referendum information on our city's website and in all the places that are required by state code, so that residents are aware of that. We also, interestingly enough, we also are required to post on our website how an individual may remove their name from the referendum petition. That is required by state code. We will also, and then on February 22nd, we'll be publishing the Proposition Information Pamphlet as well, so that is out there for residents to see.
The city publishes that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, that is handled in several different ways. We email it to the residents with every email address that we have on file. We're going to post it on the public notice website. It's going to be on the home page of the city's website. And then we'll also be distributing a link of that for that in the newsletter. So it's going to be placed in every place that I possibly can. And then the sponsors go out and they have until approximately April 5th to, well, they have until April 5th to do their signature gathering. So that's kind of, the ball's in their court at that point. Okay. The rest of this I'm going to kind of go over pretty high level because it's kind of a little bit unknown based on their signature gathering efforts.
Okay, but can you just go back, because I think you had some
Yes.
percentages up there. So on the date, is this, so they're saying that they have to get 29% of the active voters and 75% of the participating areas. How many participating areas do we have?
We have 4 voter participation areas.
Okay, of that, which ordinance do they need to get, Rob, of the 29%? Which one is? Like, which one did we pass that they have to get?
Any land use, so the
Development code.
development code one.
Okay. Okay, and then the 11.5% they need to get on the ordinance change. And the ordinance change was just
the municipal code.
the municipal code. And that was on that, just on the beer, correct?
That was, yes, the business licensing
Okay.
ordinance.
Okay, any other questions up to that point?
I've got just 2 quick questions.
Yes.
The first one, I didn't see it on here, and I don't remember if it is the city's responsibility or if it is the sponsor's responsibility to get the numbers from the county to use on the petitions. Is
That
that
is-
something that we do?
That is something that the sponsors will
Okay.
do.
And for the, what 29% of the active voters in each participation area, is that something that we provide the sponsors, or that they need to check with the county and get that number?
They will need to check with the county on that. Gathering those signatures and making sure they're in the right areas is all something they won't work with the county on.
So help us on the 29%. There's just, is that off of this last November's election, the percentage that turned out, or is it 29% of all registered voters? So if we
So-
had 10,000, I'm just saying, if we had 10,000, they got to get 2,900. If we're just
Right.
correct, if we're just using that number.
So I can tell you that the number of active voters as of our last election was 12,526. So by my calculations, 29%, just not breaking it into the different voter participation areas, but 29% would be roughly 3,633.
And they would need to get roughly 75% of that 29%.
Correct,
Okay.
and in the 3
Roughly.
different,
Right, in each.
75% of the voter participation areas.
So, Stephanie, can I ask a question?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, the definition of an active voter is a registered voter? Because we haven't had 12,000 people vote in the last 2 elections that I'm aware of. I thought active voters were the people who actually voted.
I believe that is correct. I'm going to have to look up my definition. I know there's a very specific definition that the county uses for what defines an active voter.
When I
think
looked it
it's
up, it
because
was
they were
registered.
voting in the last few elections.
It's a registered voter who has not been deemed inactive by the county. They have a very specific process they follow where they have to send out a notice and some response. It's not just, don't think of active as they have actually actively voted. It's more along the lines of registered voters with some potential. Usually it's the county, maybe they have some issues with their address and they haven't responded to certain things. They can remove them from the active voter list. But by and large, the rule of thumb is registered voters also equals active voters for referendum purposes.
So is this a change in the new state laws and that? Because in the past, when referendums have been done, and I did one, and this was 15 years ago, it was based on how many people actually did vote rather than who was registered, because the registered voting rolls are always somewhat inaccurate.
Yes, it used to be way back when it was a percentage of those, and the language something along the lines of those who voted in the last presidential election was kind of the language the state used. They went away from that, and then they changed the percentages, and then they had this active inactive issue. So it keeps changing, and the trend has been kind of to tighten up and make harder in some respects the referendum process. That might be a little bit of a policy judgment on my part about what the state legislature has done, but that's typically the effect of it, at least.
But it's also because federally, hasn't the Supreme Court made rulings on when you can call a voter inactive, right?
Yes, so there is interplay between federal constitutional law regarding voting rights
Yep.
that relates to it. But then in terms of who counts for referenda, that's all set by state law and the Utah state constitution. So there are several cases going back and forth about,
So
how
can the
hard you
Utah
be,
state
but-
constitution determine who is a registered voter using a different definition than the federal government does?
No. So the Utah state constitution grants the right of referendum, but then leaves it to the state legislature to define how you go about doing a
Interesting.
referendum. And the state legislature adopts different rules, but typically are subject still to the federal laws for who is a voter. But the state gets to decide, well, even if federal law might decide who might be a voter, state law decides how many of those we need. And whether that's the last presidential election or its current voters, that's all by the state.
So another question I have is, so in the voting aspect, there's absentee voters, or I mean, in our area, we have a lot of kids who are gone to college or might be a military or on an LDS mission. Though they have to, a person doing a referendum has to have the physical signature. They can't say, "Hey, my person that's on a, and they can't do an absentee, in a sense, on a referendum."
That's that used to be correct. As of last year, there's a new electronic signature gathering process, probably because of a case I litigated. But the upshot of that, there is an electronic way, but it is very complex. You have to essentially create a website that mimics a referendum packet and has certain steps and verifications involved in it. I haven't seen someone do it yet. The sponsors are welcome to certainly try. There is a electronic referendum process that can be followed under state law. That would be the way to do it. But unless you're doing that, it has to be physical signatures on the referendum packet.
One last quick question, Stephanie. At the top of this document, it says that the dates are subject to change. Is that because some of the dates, if things happen earlier than the deadline, that some of the subsequent dates get pulled up, or is there something else?
That is correct. So if something happens, if signatures are gathered quicker, if the turnaround time at the county is quicker, if my turnaround time is quicker, then those dates could be adjusted. Yes. Okay. All right, so that brings us back to July 25th, which would be the the date that those signatures should be all verified, and we should be able to determine whether the packets were sufficient. And
You said
the
July,
referendum.
where's the date on here? July 25th.
Oh, July 25th, it's by day 181, right down there. So after that date, we should be able to determine whether the referendum was sufficient, whether the packets were sufficient, the signatures were sufficient, and that will determine whether it is actually going to go onto the next ballot. So.
And when you're saying the next ballot that it could go on would then be November 5th, 2024?
That is exactly what I would recommend. Based on this timeline, I don't believe it's possible to have a June special election. So you'll see as we kind of go through there. Another interesting thing, if we declare that the the signatures are sufficient, the referendum is sufficient, the laws would then be placed on hold at that point. Okay.
On July 25th. I mean, at
July
that time,
25th.
that's when it would be placed on hold.
Correct.
But up until that time, let's just say if Little India came in, I'm just saying that because that's a restaurant we have coming in that I've noticed has alcohol in their thing. If they came in at this time, they could obtain an alcohol. If they could get a permit from the state.
If they could get through the state and then get through us, we would issue it. As part of, this is more just general alcohol licensing, there's two parts. There's a local consent form that goes to the state, and then there's a business license. On both of those, we would just note that the city's code allowing this is subject to referendum and maybe essentially repealed later this year, just so everyone's aware of it. We don't care if the license gets issued because per the law is on the books. But we also want to make sure people are aware that if they go forward, they may also lose that license in the future. And I'm not sure how the state DABs would handle that. I'm likely to guess they probably wouldn't be excited to issue a license that could be revoked in 6 months.
Mayor, can I just ask a question? So I was a little bit curious about if everything's done by July 25th, that we could declare a special election for November 4th, but yet we had a council member leave the council on the 31st of July, and we were told we couldn't declare a special election. How does this differ?
Because the rules regarding special elections has a list of about 20 different items that you can call a special election for. Filling a council vacancy is not one of them. Holding a referendum is. And that's the short answer. The state
Okay.
tells us we can for this and we can't for council.
Thank you.
Okay, just going back to some of your dates, then there is what we call the sponsors have to have, the sponsors are those who have filed the referendum. Then you've got up there, if you can go back up, I think you've got down, there's a time, February 7th, that council, on February 7th, you had down that there needed to be a response, the arguments for and against submitted to the city recorder, and you mentioned that one would come from the sponsors of the referendum, the other would come from the first option, my understanding, is to the city council. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, is it only, and Rob, just because this can't, is it only the council members that vote in favor of it? How does that work?
By state law, no. It just says the legislative body essentially can create that. As a practice, when I've done this both in Highland and other places, it's usually it ends up being the majority of those who supported it who also craft the argument for it. Theoretically, you could submit multiple, and we'd have to pick between it. That might make it awkward for staff, especially Stephanie, who has to make the final call. I would recommend that it be a joint effort from those who support the law to craft that argument to be submitted. But there is no hard restriction on who can do it. Anyone can submit an argument from the city.
Okay, so we need it, as a council, that will be something where the council's going to need to make a decision on who, when, if they're going to get together and craft that. Now, let me ask you, they can exchange emails, like one person can say, here it is, and share and collaborate that way, but if they get in a meeting, if it's more than two of them, then that would have to be held as a public meeting, right?
That would be held as a public meeting, and you're discussing a referendum. So as we did tonight, we'd give notice to the referendum sponsors that you would be discussing the referendum and give them time to speak if they wish. So you can do it by email and circulate it that way. If you want to call a public meeting, that's your choice. Just we'll have a few extra steps to go through.
So we're going to need to draft. Now, if the council decides they don't want to draft it, does it go to residents then, or is it? I assume most of the time it's always. I've never when it's been. Usually, it's been always the council on that. I assume the council would. Is the council in favor of keeping that here at the council of the response on the referendum? Is there another option at all, Rob, or is it only the council?
I'm double checking. I know for the VIP, there is an option for it to, we have to actually post a notice to the public to allow arguments for and against, but we give priority to the council. I think actually on the proposition information, I think it is just the council, but I'm double checking the code for that.
Council, do you want to keep that? I mean, as he's looking, I assume we want to keep that we're the ones writing? Ron, Kim, Doug?
What's the question?
Is the council want to write the arguments against or for? I guess this would be the argument for, no, I guess it would be the arguments against the referendum, right?
Yes.
Depending on how you phrase it, it's against the referendum or for the law that was adopted by the council. And it is only the municipality that submits for the proposition information pamphlet.
Doug, are you in? I mean, we've already got two council members, but
I think that, yes, we should definitely be submitting an argument in favor
of why we passed the law.
Yes.
Okay.
Because otherwise there's not going to be anything there in the information packet.
Well, and I think that, that we need to explain our decision.
Okay.
So
It's the right thing to do.
and I think that's fine. The council does that. Is there any restrictions on who voted yea or nay on it?
Well, that was my question. Is that we had a 3-2? Can the three that is a restriction on who can participate? I assume is it just the council?
It just says the council does it. So under state law, there's no restriction. So you can collaborate all together. We can have multiple things submitted. That will make it difficult for staff to choose. What staff will lean towards is we will pick the argument that is supported by a majority of the council, or as many of the council as support it. So if we have 4 different arguments submitted and 2 of them, 2 of you like one of them and everyone else had one, we'd probably go with the 2-person one. Staff's not trying to decide what the arguments should be. We're just trying to, you have the opportunity to submit it. We want to get the one that reflects the
And
majority
I might
of
as
the
well
council.
just ask this, when it's talking to council, does that include the mayor or is it only the council?
You are part of the legislative body, so yes, it includes the
Okay,
mayor.
I just want to make sure, I just want to understand what that position lies.
So Rob, since there's 2 referendums, that means there's 2 arguments.
Correct.
One of them was at a 4-1 vote, and then another was 3-2 vote.
As I recall,
That is correct.
Yes.
That is correct.
Okay, so is there one that we have to come up with 2 arguments and start, I mean, this is going to come up fast, guys. It's the 7th. That means 8 days. Is there one person wants to take one and one wants to take another, or do we want the same person to draft both, or?
My guess is that our arguments
It's gonna be the same.
are going to be remarkably similar for the 2, and that it probably doesn't make sense to draft 2 separate.
Okay.
I mean, we will be drafting 2 separate ones, but 2 wildly disparate.
It's pretty much
Argument.
the same argument.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Is there council, at least 2 council members like to get together and start the draft and then kind of pass it through the council?
If we are in need of somebody to do it, I will do it. My personal argument is that, as near as I can tell, that is what the community values support. But I will set aside my personal argument and write something that I think represents what the council is thinking, if we need somebody to do that.
I think that'd be a good starting point.
Let's start, I agree.
And I'll work with Doug.
Let's do that, and then,
I can edit.
and listen, all of us,
And I can edit.
we'll all edit.
Good writing.
Believe me, we'll all start editing. We'll get out ChatGPT and say, oh, no, it should have said this. Okay, so we've got that. Are there other things, Stephanie, we need to go through, or Rob, that you wanted to talk with on the referendums or questions council has? We do need to give time, any time in a public situation that we're going to discuss the referendum, the new law states that we need to give the opportunity to those who are the referendum sponsors to also come address the council. So before we do that, is there questions or clarification or anything that way the council needs?
I have a question because I haven't been as much a part of one of these. Rob, can you tell us what the rules are for us personally?
As a personal matter, you are welcome. You still have all your rights of expression and petitioning the government. You just cannot use city time or city resources to do so. So you also cannot compel city staff to also make any arguments for or against or take any position regarding this. City staff there's a lot of restrictions. We are only allowed to use city resources to provide essentially factual information about the proposition, which we have, we already posted information basically saying the laws passed and they did exactly this. There's no arguments about just this is what it is. Stephanie will post all the proposition information, the referendum information. Other than that, as your personal lives, you're welcome to advocate in any direction you would like. If you'd like to sign the referendum or not sign the referendum, that is your choice. You're welcome to do so. If you'd like to gather signatures or not gather signatures, that is also your choice.
If you get an email, okay, let me ask you, we get an email coming into our city account. Can we state our opinion back on our city email a way we favor, or is that not to be done because it's a city account?
There is a rule about that. I want to make sure I get the rule exactly correct. It is a pretty technical thing.
I mean, I understand if you're talking to someone, you have the right to think, but if it's a city email, I just wanted to make sure. You want
What I would recommend, if someone sends you an email asking for it, say essentially you can engage them on a factual thing, like here's the information on the city's website. I would, and maybe it's I would like to talk to you, either direct it to your personal email or, call them offline. Essentially don't use your city email for those purposes. Don't send out emails soliciting for or against the referendum. If someone sends in, what do you think about this? Say, would love to talk to you about it. Let's set up a time to talk, or I'll send you a response on my personal email. Just avoid using city resources for any kind of campaigning either way.
I have another question. So for collecting signatures for the referendum, are you allowed to collect the signatures on city property, such as in the city building, city parks? How does that work?
City parks, city sidewalks, absolutely. Those are public fora, so they're designated as kind of free expression areas. We restrict the use of city buildings for that, but I can't remember what our building use policy says, Aaron. You'd have to remind me. I believe we actually have had signature gatherings.
We had
at here.
We
in
did
the
have out front, but they were, I don't know if they were that side, I think it's the library, but there was a group here when we had the last referendum that was in the City Hall. The question is that correct?
I think we changed
I
policy.
think we might have
after
changed our
that.
policy. That's based on our city use policy. If it comes up to like a fling or other event, the policy is, again, we will allow anyone to gather things. We'll generally say, please rent a booth so you're not, interrupting people, walking through, but you're still allowed to participate in it as any other vendor would be. And that's what we've also told candidates running for election, get a booth and, work from there.
Got it. So essentially just the city hall building.
Just the city hall building. Also public safety, but fewer people want to go.
Now, with the referendum, now naturally people are free to do whatever they want. There could be people doing a mailer saying, hey, you're going to be getting people knocking on your door. We'd encourage or discourage, whatever it might be. But once again, we're not to use our city email. Now, usually I've always heard if you use your personal email for your city business. So if someone emails you a question about the referendum, say, because this is a referendum, I'm going to use my personal, that does not become grammable?
No, so the question is, you're actually addressing those answers in more of your personal capacity. If they're asking a question of, what is the city, can you send me the information? I've heard there's a referendum. Can you send me the information the city has on it? And you say, great, that's your city email. Respond back saying the city's, here's the link on the city's website. Here's the proposition information pamphlet. Here's the law, all that information. And then they say, all right, now, Mayor Osler, what do you think about it? What do you think I should do about it? Say, happy to share that with you, but that's not for my city. That's me in my personal capacity at that point.
So, Rob, when we're looking at social media, so on the city's official website, should we, same thing, only comment factual information and do so under our personal page rather than our campaign pages? What are the rules about social media?
Not clear rules, but in terms of us running the city social media, we will keep it very factual. We'll probably just post links. There's a referendum. You might be seeing things. Here's the city's information. And that's all it is. If you're wanting to respond or engage residents on that, if you answer on your personal accounts, you're welcome.
Well, no,
to do
some of
so.
us, I have an account, my personal account, but I have one that says Kurt Osler, Highland City Mayor.
Yep.
I think that's what Kim and Brittany are.
But those are also not city accounts.
Okay.
You've put your title on there, but that's not we don't own those. The city doesn't
Correct.
own those
We
accounts.
control those accounts.
So those are still they have your title on it. And there's always a question. People say, well, you shouldn't use your title, but you have the title. You're welcome to approach people. Hey, I'm a council member. This is what I think. Maybe that'll help your argument. Maybe it won't. That's just the politics of campaigning. And you're welcome to do that as you think is appropriate. It's the use of city resources, city time, city money, city equipment. You can't use our copier to print off a mailer for or against anything. That's the real restriction that we're dealing with.
We're not to use Brooklyn for any, hey, can you design this nice little thing?
Don't ask Brooklyn to design things for or against or anything else. We have our own publication that will follow under state code, and that's what staff will do.
For what it is worth, my personal opinion is that if we have any accounts that look like they are official accounts, whether they are or not, that we probably shouldn't be advocating for them.
I think you're better to go. I think what you're recommending is probably wise. Because people always question, hey, you used your personal account, even though it's something you own. We all have personal accounts too.
We might get you're not restricted from using those accounts. What will probably happen is someone might be confused and say, I thought the city was supposed to say neutral in it, but using your city account, and then we have to explain it's not a city account. I believe Councilmember Smith had a question as well.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to circle back to the definition of active voter. I think that's essential because that determines how many signatures people have to collect, and you have to collect more than, what the limit is, because there's always people that sign that are not registered. So it seems when I've looked at things that there's a discrepancy between how the state defines an active voter and how the county does. So who trumps?
So here's the state definition word for word.
Okay.
Active voter means a registered voter who has not been classified as an inactive voter by the county clerk, which is a great definition. We appreciate the state for all their help in that. But as I read it, basically, the state defines what an active voter is, but says you are not, it is all that are registered. So when you go sign up to register, you're now an active voter by default, unless the county clerk decides to follow the process to declare you inactive.
Well, what about if the county clerk says, this is what my definition of active voter, and you've just asked me to come say who my active voters are?
So
I think that's what your question is.
The county will have their list, but it will include all registered voters, unless those that the county has followed the very specific process to declare them as inactive. Otherwise, it's all registered voters.
So basically, the county determines how many signatures need to be collected.
Yes.
And will they tell people or publish that or let people know? Because I think, people need to know if they're going to go to all this work, needs to know how many signatures they need to collect.
So, because county's going to be counting the signatures and saying, yes, they met the criteria. Who sets the criteria that have to be met? I think that's what's got.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
Is it the city
who
or is
sets
it the
the
county that
criteria?
tells us you have this, and for a referendum you got to get the signatures?
Correct, I believe so the county is going to be the one, they'll go to the county and say, okay, I've got 4 voter participation areas. They'll let them know how many people they have to get, how many signatures they need to get in each one of those voter participation areas.
For the 2 different percentages.
For the 2 different percentages.
Because you have 2 different
correct.
referendums.
Yes.
If they turn in signatures at different times, then does the county still have until whatever day you said?
The 25th.
The 25th of July. Do they have from the 25th of July from that April deadline, regardless of when signatures are submitted? How does that work?
So this really kind of gets into the weeds a little bit, but so each packet, it can, from the time that first signature is on the packet, they have 30 days per packet. So when that packet has reached, like say, the first signature on that packet was on March 1, well, it's a bad day, it's March 1, and then the last date could be April 1, okay?
Or March 30th.
March 30th, I apologize. So that packet then is complete, it's turned into the county, and they will start reviewing those signatures and those voters to make sure that they are eligible to sign that referendum. That's why there is so much time, because those packets could be turned in at varying times. And then once all those packets have been taken care of, they actually can turn them into me as they receive them. Most likely, at least the way they handled the last referendum, I received all those packets in one day. So that's why there's that long period of time. They have 21 days after they've received that packet to verify those signatures. The remaining 90 days are for trickle-in packet type things and my review time as well.
Does
that make
they have to
sense?
get the 3,500 signatures, but they only turn 2,000 in. Will the county let us know, like, let's assume it's April 1st, they have to have them all in. Will they say, hey, we've only had 2,000, the threshold was 3,500, so thus we don't need to count past April 1st because we didn't get them? Or do they wait till the 25th of July to say, hey, out of the verified, you only had, 1,900 verified that you needed 3,500? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure if I understand your question completely.
If it's obvious that they didn't collect enough signatures, will the county let us know sooner versus will they still try to verify the signatures and say they were short?
My feeling, they will let us know as soon as they know. I don't think they're going to drag that out for us. There's a lot of questions that I have exactly as to how the county is going to handle the counting and the timeline of that, but by state code, they do have that 111, between the county and myself, we have the 111 days to verify those signatures. So I will reach out to the county and find out more specifics on how they will handle the counting of those signatures and the verification, and I'll get back to you on that. So.
Any other questions?
Okay, someone asked me this question. So go up to where it says the qualifications you need in order to go and get signatures. I think you have to be 18 years old, you have to be a resident, you have to be a registered voter.
That one. Yes.
Where was it at?
So right at the top there.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Anyone signing the petition must be a registered voter and live in Highland. Anyone circulating petition must be a resident of Utah, at least 18 years old. So somebody asked me if that person was not 18 years old, and they saw them going around getting signatures, what did they need to do?
Probably report it to the county and to Stephanie, so we have that information.
Okay.
At the back of each packet, there was a verification page where the person who's gathering signatures. It's supposed to be basically one person, one packet. And if they only gather 10 signatures, great. They can turn that in the county. Those will be counted. And they go get another packet later. But it's that person has to sign basically an affidavit saying, I meet these requirements. I did this all correctly. There's very specific language written out in state law, but essentially I complied with the requirements of state law in gathering these signatures. They sign that and turn it in to the county.
Okay.
If there's a question, report that and we will look into it.
We'll let them know.
Okay. Any other questions? At this time, I think we'll turn some time over. If the referendum sponsors would like to come up and address the council, they're welcome to come up if they have a representative.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Rice. You know me. I actually have more for questions for Stephanie. So, and actually for Rob. So, what I've read a couple of things, and if you'll just bear with me, is that a grandma can be personal or private. So, if you wouldn't mind sending me the law, because what I've read in vote.gov it's like Utah Code 20A-7, it's in there. It says both personal and private can be granted.
Are you talking of the city council members,
yes,
personal or private? Can be
correct. That was my understanding. If I'm wrong, then I stand corrected. But I'd like to actually see that, if you don't mind. Okay, and then
you have the code number for Rob to look at.
I had it. I actually don't.
Liz, are you referring to their personal or private emails?
Yes.
What
can be
my
grammed?
understanding was personal or private emails can be grammed, and maybe I'm going back to election, but that is my understanding, and I got that from the state, and I got that from the county.
Would you mind if you happen to go find that information?
I can,
Rob,
and I can call the same people that I've been talking to there as well. So, and then,
Thank you.
So Stephanie, this one's kind of for you. So you divided into 4 quadrants, my understanding, because we're a class 2. Okay.
4.
We're class 4?
We're fourth class.
Oh, that's why I kept thinking we're 4. So I'm figuring per quadrant, 910 to 925-ish per quadrant signatures.
Mm-hmm.
Is my math on?
I'm going to let the county help you with that math because
Okay.
I know when they.
Okay, I can ask them.
Yeah, I know when I've talked to them, it seems really straightforward, but there's some nuances to it. So verify with them.
I've had some of these questions I'd like to share with Rob that I've already asked the state that they responded differently than the county. So then my other question was when we go to copy the packets, so in the code, it says that we are not allowed to unstaple tape, and it's supposed to be stapled 3 times across this top. So I am asking you for a PDF that we can copy from, because if we start picking that apart, then that packet becomes invalid. Is that correct?
I will be giving you one copy of the packet.
Just a hard copy, or can you give me a PDF or both? I'd like both.
I can do a PDF of that.
Okay.
We can do hard copy, but
I would like both. And then it's, because it's different, but I would like just a PDF so we're not picking apart yours and then we get in trouble for that.
So let's
If
just
you
help me
understand
understand. Okay, so you're going to get paper stapled 3 across. What does the PDF, what does that help you with?
Well, in order to copy, you usually have to take those staples out. I mean, unless I'm seeing something differently.
Liz, I probably would give you that original document without having it stapled together.
Okay.
They can't.
Then you would be
that's great.
free to copy that and
Okay.
then staple it as required.
Okay,
So-
so we are responsible for that stapling across and
Correct.
following those rules.
Correct.
Okay. Give me one more second. So, and my understanding is I've read through the code that the arguments cannot be, is it 250 words or 500 words? Rob?
The initial arguments, I believe, are 500 words.
Max.
Yes, and that's for the proposition information pamphlet. I believe it's the rebuttals in the voter information pamphlet that are the 250.
250. Okay, give me a second. But, well, and I thought, so are the rebuttals included in the packet that we're going to print
No.
out? It's
No.
not, but our arguments are.
The arguments
Correct.
are included in the proposition information
Okay.
pamphlet, which goes into the referendum signature packet.
Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Give me one more second. So on the land use, we're at 3,633 votes, or signatures, excuse me, which is about 910 per quadrant. And on the 11%, how much, 11.5%, how many?
Based off the active voters as of November of 2023, my calculations show that the 11.5% are 1,440.
1,400 and what?
40.
40, thank you.
I will add a caveat, just the final numbers will be determined by the county.
I understand that as well.
Yes.
I just don't want you to get exactly
No,
those
I-
signatures and
yes.
think you're good. I just,
Well, we figured 3,500 is what we figured. So we're in the ballpark, and I believe we'll have more than that. And just, there was one more question, but Stephanie is really good about answering. So, just one thought, food for thought. You understand that when we have 3,633 signatures, that will exceed the number of people who were for the liquor survey. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you. With that, is there anything else staff needs to, in this work session we need to go over before we go into closed session?
No, sir.
Because this is not a public meeting, I mean, this is just a work session. We don't, maybe we ought to check, is there any other sponsors that would like to come up and address the council? Okay, seeing none? No. So we'll take do we need a motion to go into closed session?
correct, for the purpose of the purchase or acquisition of real property.
I need a motion for,
I will move that we move into closed session
I'll second.
for the purpose of,
for the purpose of the acquisition of property.
okay, thank you.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are now in closed session. Thank you for coming tonight.